the legendary Hollywood director. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 901, Epoch Making, Subscriptions, Votes Required. This is a man with a bad temper and a harsh personality. He dared to shout out that he was the king of the world when he stood on the Oscar podium and was overinterpreted by many media. But few people know that he has promoted Titanic to many manufacturers and was ridiculed and watched coldly by more people who think they are professionals. He has such a heavy burden. If he doesn't shoot well, he will have no chance to be in Hollywood. So when he succeeded, he stood on the Oscar podium, raised the little golden man trophy, and waved it above his head, shouting, "I'm the king of the world." It was actually more of a vent, even if it would make some people hate him more. He is so combative that he has scolded a group of movie stars, but he will also bend down to put makeup on the actors himself. Because for him, movies are movies, and it is a direction that allows him to live with dignity. Back to Avatar. This movie has also been questioned by many people, but Cameron has been used to it. He is also quite experienced in ideological work. Who knows that Lyman did not let him continue in this direction? Cameron suddenly felt that it was a good thing that an experienced director who had truly stepped into the field of directing came to invest in Avatar. At least he didn't have to repeatedly explain the script. A director tells a story in his own way. They are all stories, but there is only so much space for narration. So in Cameron's eyes, risk control and dramatic conflicts are secondary. What's important is that he wants to use the technology he is deeply fascinated with to shoot. Since the technology is to be highlighted, why is the story designed to be complicated? Isn't that putting the cart before the horse? In my expectation, it will give people a deeper sense of participation, presence, and immersion. It will make the audience feel as if they are in the scene, making the movie journey more real. 3D and IMAX. The relevant technology can already meet your needs. Lyman's casual and understated agreement made Cameron more satisfied. In fact, he is not the only one in Hollywood who is tinkering. Many special effects companies are moving towards this aspect. After all, everyone knows that technological progress has triggered innovation in the industry, otherwise theaters would not have cooperated early. You know, there are now more than 4,500 IMAX giant screen theaters in Hollywood, while at the end of 2008 there were only more than 1,800, which shows that the number is still growing. Lyman is also the boss of a film studio. Cameron is not surprised that he is interested in it. He is convinced that this is the biggest source of his confidence and interest. This shows that the man in front of him is like him and does not reject new technologies. Don't think this is normal. Many directors in Hollywood still insist on film shooting, saying that the sense of ritual of movies is so great. Even if digitalization is adopted, there are so many benefits. Now I know why you are willing to invest in Avatar. As soon as he said this, Lyman could hear that the other party really began to accept him, and his attitude improved a lot. I'm also a director. Of course I will be interested in technologies different from digital shooting, but I don't know much about this. I can only understand some of the fur. Cameron smiled. Then what did you see? New technologies will definitely face some practical obstacles if they want to be promoted. It has only been more than 10 years since digital technology was able to surpass film. However, I have already felt the sense of immersion in some 3D works converted later. In the past, we only composed on a 2D plane, and now we have added a Z-axis. Doesn't it mean that infinite possibilities have been opened up in composition? Everything we learned in the past has changed. Cameron showed a pleased expression, looking at Lyman with more favorable eyes. A sharp answer. If you had not participated in the previous experimental documentary, I would have thought that you had witnessed its perfection like me. To be honest, I have always been disgusted by the conservatism of some people. Even someone as old as me is willing to accept a new way of filming. Why do those filmmakers younger than me still embrace the past? If I could shoot Titanic in 3D in 1997, who would be willing to use film that is more labor intensive and actors take risks? There is no doubt that 3D will be ahead, and anyone who has a deep understanding of it will think so. His words will be proven to be correct in early 2010, or it can be said that it was Cameron who personally used Avatar to shatter people's doubts, promoted the screening of 3D plus IMAX, confirmed that this technology would have great temptation to audiences around the world, and brought an entire industry chain into spring. In fact, people of insight in Hollywood have discovered that the development of the internet has become a shackle for the film industry, as new media such as YouTube and Netflix have become the entertainment options of more audiences, without the immersive viewing experience of 3D plus IMAX that cannot be enjoyed at home. It may not always be able to attract so many audiences to the theater. After all, the comfort and convenience of watching movies at home are simply not comparable to those in the cinema, and the advantages and disadvantages of both sides are obvious. The more they talked, the more speculative they became, and they almost forgot about the money. Avatar has always been a foil to technology. The characters move naturally in the special effects scenes, and there is no abrupt sense of substitution with the scenery. In the end, it presents a beautiful visual spectacle and intoxicates audiences around the world. Similarly, the reason why this is a great movie is not only because Avatar has achieved a terrifyingly high score, but also because it has revolutionized the way movies are shot, and it has also made directors who are familiar with film work learn to adapt to their skills. Of course, 3D technology is perfect, but it is not mature. At least the high cost of shooting has not come down. Every frame costs money. If you don't try to use it, there will be no change. You will just be left behind. What should I say? Cameron took a sip of red wine and finally remembered that he had to make sure whether there was money for him. Well, I have to admit that meeting you has refreshed my views. Before this, only John cared about your invitation. I was still a little hesitant, but now, Lemon, I can feel that you have really investigated these new technologies and know that there are risks, but you still came. I think I will be happy to have you join. Although Avatar was not finalized before, many people could talk about investment, but this is Cameron's project. Without his approval, he doesn't have to pay. Lemon's bet has the possibility of subsequent negotiations at this moment. Then I have to say something to my allies in advance. I will ask Sony to be responsible for the distribution that you are worried about. This is a cooperation between the three parties. Cameron nodded. If possible, before the negotiation, I would like to invite you and the Columbia people to my studio. This project actually has some results for reference. It is also a demonstration of trust in you, and I think it should be shown to some people who really appreciate it. I will contact you when Columbia is willing. I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 902, Black Widow returns. Subscribe, vote. Rushing back to the company, Lemon received Gareth Antoinette the next day, who was also the director of Columbia's distribution department. Apparently, facing this temptation, the other party could not resist. Is your company really ready to invest? This core figure in the Hollywood power circle was still a little skeptical of Lemon. 500 million is not a small number, not to mention that it is an original work with extremely high risks. Is Columbia worried that we will withdraw our investment midway? Don't worry, now that we have made the decision, we will certainly not fail to do it. On this point, Lemon's confidence is far deeper than his superficial attitude. At least Man Media is not subject to the board of directors like Disney. I met with director Cameron yesterday, which further strengthened my determination to invest. Think about it, a shooting method that represents the future must be better. The sooner you get in touch with it, the better. Besides, I'm a director myself. Haha, a very strong reason. Gareth smiled and said, as long as the project payment can be settled, and there is a completion guarantee, then our company will have no problem. However, regarding the joint distribution you mentioned, I personally think that Blue Butterfly Pictures is not big enough. The shooting budget of at least 350 million is not something you can participate in. Don't we have you? Aren't you responsible for distribution? Lemon asked back. No. Simply providing theaters and film screenings is just the basis for the Avatar project. We are definitely willing to help you with this, but you also lack good advertising, right? Lemon spread his hands. You mean Columbia will take all the publicity costs? This is unrealistic, sir. Let's just talk about the domestic market. According to general circumstances, publicity expenses should account for 1/3 of the total budget, which is about 130 million. 50 to 50, 65 million will go to Columbia. How about that? You should know that you are not the only option. It is Firefly that took the risk first. Then we can talk about whether there is room for profit. We both need to look forward. Haha, Gareth curled his lips. But this is indeed the truth. Otherwise, it seems that no one has any advertising investment channels. As long as it is a distribution company, everyone knows how to transfer money from one hand to the other. Even Hasbro, a company that dares not easily get involved in the entertainment industry, has strict restrictions on various contract details with Paramount. Let's put it this way. Warner Brothers falsified its financial report. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was obviously profitable, but it had to make a fiscal deficit of 160 million. After all, it was an exception. He said that the proportion of its distribution, advertising and copying costs accounted for a larger proportion of its expenditure, but obviously, everyone knew that these dollars were not spent on the ground. Everyone has a book in their mind. There is basically a standard for how much investment a project should be invested in. For example, if the market is good, the publicity and promotion investment of low-cost movies can often reach one or even several times the shooting budget, but blockbusters basically maintain the red line at 1/3 or even half. There is no point in exceeding it, and the unspoken rule of Hollywood is to take 20% to 30% of this money. For example, for a movie with an investment of 100 million, it is agreed that the publicity cost must not be less than 30 million. For this 30 million level of investment, the distributor can wipe out 600 to 900 million, which is the acceptable range for the producer. Because they have their own TV stations, newspapers, and even advertising companies, according to the market price, they can make money. Many people don't care who makes the money, as long as the effect is up to standard. Now Lemon's meaning is this. After he and Lyman carefully considered their own size, they determined that they could take up 50 to 60 million level of investment without delay. The rest could only be handed over to the allies, which also reassured them. As for overseas, they could not be exposed for the time being, so they gave up everything and did not participate in either publicity or distribution. Sure enough, Columbia was not that greedy. They just felt that the terms signed by both parties in the Thor project were not applicable to Avatar. Even if the domestic market vacated the theater share, Blue Butterfly Pictures' investment intensity could not keep up. They raised questions from the perspective of the project's interests. Okay, we can find a time to talk about it in more detail. Lemon reminded, my agreement with them is still a little short of steps, and you Columbia should come up with some regulations first. No problem. Gareth agreed readily. By the way, I also hope you can help with the renovation of the IMAX projection system and sign a projection contract with the cinema chain in advance. It costs 800,000 to 1 million to renovate a theater. Those vampires are not particularly generous, so don't have too high expectations. But if the ticket price goes up, it will attract more audiences to enter. Can you discuss it more? Anyway, most theater chains are willing to allocate a share to accommodate 3 IMAX theaters. Okay, I'll listen to you. I just hope that the Avatar project can really achieve results and don't lose all the money. On the contrary, why can't it be a full return? An investment of 500 or 600 million in exchange for a future. Is the possibility of failure really high? I have always been able to achieve a win-win situation with my partners. If it weren't for this, we wouldn't have agreed to so many conditions. Despite the doubts, Columbia still wanted to make more profits. Gareth waved and left in a good mood. After Liam left, Lemon lay in the boss chair and thought about it for a few rounds. Winning Avatar and stabilizing Cameron would just pave the way for global distribution. With such intangible assets and strong experience, plus the record he had once again identified, how could he not impress the upstream and downstream distributors overseas? Hey, after The Intouchables broke the record of French box office history, the bet on Avatar directly broke the record of the global movie list. Such a record, who can ignore it? Just thinking about it, Assistant Mace knocked on the door. Is there anything the company can do? The last time we discussed with Hasbro about investing money to promote Captain America, it worked. Last weekend, the decline was only 37%, and it continued to pick up, earning $4.87 million, ranking 8th. The total box office has exceeded $300 million. In addition, Mr. Feige is selecting the final round and wants you to go over to discuss it. Mace reported carefully. Got it. I'll go and see the audition first. If Hasbro has any other plans, let Joseph decide. Lemon walked out of the office and came to the Marvel production department, which was only one floor away. He saw that several familiar faces had entered the final round, and the content of the interview was still very casual. And when he sat next to Kevin, he got to know a lot more about the audition. For the role of Black Widow, none of the 4 best actresses born in the 1980s, including Scarlett Johansson, Jessica Alba, Natalie Portman, and Gemma Arterton, would be bad. But because of preconceived notions, Lemon had always been optimistic about Scarlett. After all, the bathwater joke was well known to everyone, not to mention that she was still relatively young, and her looks and figure were at their peak. It would have been fine if it was just that, but Lemon saw that among the final few contestants, she was the only one who dyed her hair into long reddish brown curls in a cartoon image. It was true. Although the thought was a bit deliberate, it was a plus to think of it. Kevin, what do you mean? Lemon asked casually after sitting down. I can't be sure, boss. Jessica's advantage is that it's easier to put pressure on her. She has the least resources in the circle behind her, and she won't just give up and bargain. Natalie is backed by the Jewish circle. I have received some calls more than once, but she has already starred in Thor. In order to take care of her, she was left at the end. Gemma represents the British circle. If we take overseas publicity into consideration, Britain is a big box office, but her market appeal is the lowest. As for Scarlett, she is similar. She has connections with Italians and Jews represented by Coppola, but she doesn't have many connections to borrow. However, she has been acting in independent works for some time, and the audience recognizes her acting skills. She is second only to Natalie. The disadvantage is that it is not easy to suppress bargaining pay. Don't think too much. Among these people, I have dealt with Scarlett when I was filming The Prestige. I feel that she is a very smart actor who knows how to judge the situation and has no lack of business ability. It's just that there are more gossips, but she doesn't care. It doesn't meet the temperament of Black Widow, so let's choose her. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 903 Mask. Subscribe, vote. Except for Natalie Portman, the 4 actors have conflicting worldviews. After all, no one knows Marvel's next plan, and the existing actors cannot transition to other related works to prevent crossplay, while the other 3 have their own advantages and disadvantages. But after Lemon's confirmation, Kevin Feige did not hesitate much, and decisively discussed the details of the film contract with Scarlett's agent team after the last round. Because Black Widow has few scenes and is limited by the long-term contract, the salary she can get is just so-so, and what she needs is additional bonuses. The first Iron Man 2 was $300,000, and Scarlett's team was still very happy. Just when the Hollywood film market was soaring with the annual animation masterpiece Up newly added to the summer battlefield by Pixar Studios, with a first week performance of $68.2 million, Lemon sighed and several senior executives of Columbia came to Cameron's studio. This is our experimental studio. Cameron, the owner of this place, roughly showed the small scale and floor area of the place, which might even have been built temporarily. He pointed to the complex camera operation system inside and introduced it with some interest. It looks like it can only cover a small space now, but it can already shoot the corresponding shots. In the future, when we really enter the shooting stage, the demand for cameras will be even greater. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately waved his hand. A 30-year-old maintenance worker next to him put on the motion capture modeling equipment with agile movements. Lloyd, show me a few movements. Cameron said while looking at Lemon. You will know how interesting it is later. Lemon looked at the experienced person called Lloyd curiously. With the help of another person, he finally fixed a helmet covered with rubber contacts on his head, and there was also a microphone-style recording device in front of his face. Facing several camera positions, dense green dots for expression capture were also posted according to the camera angle. Everything was ready. Lemon and the senior executives of Columbia gathered next to the director's monitor and stared carefully at the feedback. Lloyd was seen deliberately blinking his eyes and opening and closing his mouth. The monitor was still showing his own movements, but the processor on the same screen was a Pandora's face, making the same movements and expressions. Although it was just a prototype and a little rough without rendering, it was basically seen that this was a character modeled after Lloyd's face. Awesome. Very delicate expressions, even the eyes have changes. Everyone was amazed, especially Lemon. He had been exposed to these technologies, and Digital Domain was working hard on motion capture, so of course he knew how awesome Weta Digital's system was. Haha. Actually, we were also troubled before. Real life CG can't be as agile as people. This is the biggest difficulty. Cameron said proudly. We all know that pure computer synthesized CG audiences don't buy it at all. If you are not careful, you will fall into the uncanny valley and be boycotted by fans. The death of Final Fantasy has taught our team a great lesson. This is the fact. Without human participation and enlightenment, there will be a lack of a certain soul. This is why I named this movie Avatar. I want to know if the Indian gods see their incarnations in this way. Avatar is a Hindu title, Avatar, which is most generally believed to be related to the physical manifestation of the gods on the ground, and it is also very clear to deconstruct the script from this perspective. The male protagonist is inconvenient to move, so he transforms into a Pandora star to walk in the new world. Although we can see the shadow of Lloyd's acting in this character, it always feels a bit strange. A senior executive of Columbia said, I heard that Mr. Cameron rejected Leonardo's request to perform. Why? If possible, I'm willing to increase the budget. Inviting a superstar will be more secure for all of us. Lemon was also unambiguous and echoed the words, looking very easy to talk to. Cameron frowned, but what he said made sense. You all guessed that it was a budget issue, but in fact, the real money spent on Avatar has always been on the filming itself and post-rendering. It's not that it's bad to hire some popular actors, but the cost effectiveness is not high. First of all, it's always troublesome to work with big name stars. Their management team is difficult to deal with. Just like Leo, even though I know him very well, he is no longer the carefree, dare to try, and ambitious person when he was filming Titanic. After I told him about the role, his first reaction was not the salary issue, but whether walking around in front of the green screen with equipment is still considered acting. How much room is there for the role to play? Will too few frontal scenes damage his image? Look, he and his team are full of this in their minds, and they don't care why the movie was shot this way. His agent also suggested that Leo's role should be reduced if he is to star in the green screen. But how is this possible? I will never agree to this. Secondly, the biggest role of movie stars in a movie should be to increase competition and raise the stakes, but Avatar does not need this much. I'm sure that the biggest reason for attracting audiences to the theater must be the special effects spectacle that is different from any other movie. I'm very confident in this aspect, and you have also seen part of it. Therefore, the performance opportunity is not something that can account for this work. It ranks behind many elements. Cameron pointed to the effect lens. Anyway, the actors only need to be familiar with how to control facial expressions, and the high definition cameras around will transmit various data back to the host, and then build a model according to the program settings. As long as the data is continuously refined and more full, the final character image will be a real incarnation and leave traces of human beings. I think many actors can do it. Perhaps this is the movie with the lowest requirements for actors' appearance and body shape in history. If this technology was available when filming Terminator 2, Schwarzenegger would not have to work out every day after acting and scold me for torturing him. Haha. Lemon couldn't help laughing. Sometimes, Cameron is still a little humorous, but it is not difficult to see from his words that this technology is simply obliterating the future of actors. If you just perform with a mask, the threshold is really too low, and there are fewer things to consider. The most likely thing that restricts an actor's path is his appearance and temperament. For example, Heath Ledger. Even if he surpassed Batman with the role of the Joker, Hollywood investors still won't give him that kind of American hero role. He is only valuable in some strange roles or spectacular themes. Otherwise, it would be very inconsistent, and with a mask, all the incongruities are reduced to the lowest point. As long as he wants, he can play any role. Anyway, he only gives traces of the soul and spirit, and nothing else is involved. Chapter 904 The thickness of the plot. Please subscribe and vote. After the presentation, Lyman, Columbia, and Cameron confirmed the details of the cooperation. As in his previous life, in order to make Avatar, Cameron still gave up his high salary and only grabbed the copyright to prevent Firefly from leaving him alone. According to the agreement, Firefly invested 420 million yuan alone and paid 80 million yuan to Weta Digital, accounting for 80%. Although the total expenditure budget of the project is about 500 million yuan, the actual expenditure of the crew is about 350 million yuan. Of course, of the 350 million yuan, Cameron Studio will still take 30 million yuan, which belongs to John Landor and Cameron's production salary. The director only enjoys 20% of the box office net profit and does not get any extra money. In summary, it is an alternative 2+2 model. 20% of the net profit of copyright income, home entertainment part plus TV broadcast plus streaming on demand plus authorized peripherals plus derivatives, plus 20% of the box office profit. For a world-class director, such conditions are not greedy, as he and his studio have set up the stall from beginning to end. Although this guy always overspends the budget and has a hard temper, which makes the investors jump, he has always been generous in terms of profit sharing. As for the largest distributor Columbia, they added the priority distribution rights of the project sequel to the signed contract and participated in the profit sharing as a distributor. There is nothing else. Anyway, after the three parties reached an agreement, Lyman quickly deposited the first 200 million funds into the account of the crew under his supervision, and settled the accounts with Disney, which paid for the documentary, and repeatedly paid for it. Everything went according to plan, and Lyman was always in a good mood. From a utilitarian point of view, this wave not only hits the competitor Fox, but also relies on the success of Avatar to deepen the bargaining chips, to show muscles to Warner, which is in bad luck, and Columbia, whose attitude is beginning to hesitate. Before leaving the studio, Cameron came over and muttered, "Lyman, you can come to visit and familiarize yourself with the technology, but you can't interfere with my filming. Also, it's best not to interrupt when I'm in a bad mood. I don't want to affect our friendship. By the way, don't contact media reporters to visit Avatar to attract traffic. I don't like it. I need privacy. Everything will be discussed after the movie is completed. Don't worry, sir. We will try our best to meet any needs. The crew will definitely leave it to you." Nonsense. Cameron, who has entered the tyrant mode on the set, has sharp words that can make people jump off the building. Even if Lyman is the biggest sponsor, he probably won't give much face, so he doesn't want to interfere. In other words, Cameron in normal times and Cameron on the set are two different people. Lyman doesn't want to enter the territory of a lion as a director. That's good. Cameron smiled with satisfaction. "We are very busy with work. If there is nothing else, I won't greet you." Then, John Landor sent Lyman to the parking lot and returned to the company. Kevin Feige was holding a preparatory meeting for Iron Man 2 with a group of people to determine the location, sponsor advertising placement, actor makeup, and costume props. The cast of this play is similar to the previous life. Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, Gwyneth Paltrow, Little Pepper, and Don Cheadle replaced Terrence Howard in the first film to play Colonel Rhodes, and Mickey Rourke, who became famous with Fighting Fish and became popular again in Sin City, played Whiplash. It is worth noting that Whiplash's awkward revenge scene involving the technical patent issues of his father was changed to a thug trained by the Hydra organization. Is he a villain? It is still a work that highlights the flawed and down-to-earth protagonist like Iron Man. There is no need to make some unnecessary things that make the plot not smooth. Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, Sam Rockwell, Justin, an arms dealer supported by Hydra, Whiplash is his subordinate, and the director is still played by Samuel Jackson for a short appearance. At the same time, a short segment was added in which Dr. Banner, played by Mark Ruffalo, continued to study the will of the Hulk and tried to search for the cosmic cube to pave the way for the New York War. Because of the change in order, some changes in the plot will appear more reasonable, and the worldview and filling settings will be more abundant. So far, Iron Man 2 has entered the final period of preparation. The actors should exercise, and the interiors should continue to be built. According to Kevin Feige's plan, the crew will definitely be able to officially start filming at the end of June, and the scheduled time is very ample. The next morning, major media newspapers have abandoned the old king and embraced the new work. The discussion about Transformers 2 was extremely noisy. The second part of this series opened with a gorgeous figure of about $109 million, topping the North American ticket weekly chart, surpassing the June opening score set by Robot Wall-E in the same period last year, setting a new record. You know, the first week of 109 million and the audience reputation better than the first one are really higher than the industry's expectations. Even Paramount Hasbro camp was very surprised. It has to be said that the Autobots are really loved by audiences all over the world. The only movie in the schedule, Transformers 2, directly accounted for 56.4% of the total box office of the top 12 this week. Driven by it, the North American film market soared 33.2% compared with last week, reaching $193 million, and also defeated the first week of June 2004 led by Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, becoming the most popular weekend in June, and the single theater, 4234 theaters, scored $25,743, which is also the highest figure so far this year. It is not difficult to see from the above data that the second part has increased too much compared to the first part. Everyone is surprised why there are so many audiences supporting it, because the overseas market that was screened simultaneously directly won $220 million in the first week, which is even more exaggerated. Among them, the mainland accounted for 60 million yuan, equivalent to more than $8 million. Lyman analyzed some reasons. First of all, when Transformers 1 was screened, it collided with The Dark Knight, one of Nolan's peak works, and because it was adapted from toys, the stereotype was that it was for young people. But after the foreshadowing of the first part in channels such as DVD and TV broadcasts, this impression was rewritten. Moreover, the combination of Spielberg plus Michael Bay's Transformers is no different from the machine version of Jurassic Park. The Decepticon camp persecuting the Earth and the Tyrannosaurus Rex hunting humans are the same routines. Movie fans are willing to buy into this kind of big visual effects movie because there is no cultural barrier. CG technology gives the audience the pleasure of mechanical sense. After achieving good results, Paramount should also thank Sony Columbia for withdrawing 2012, which has the highest overlap with the audience group of this film. Of course, some of the remaining blockbusters that are on the decline cannot stop the pace of the Autobots. After all, Captain America has dropped to 10th place, and Star Trek is also ranked 8th. Putting away the newspaper, Lemon looked at Eva again. Since the completion of New Moon and the transition to the post-production stage, she has also had some free time and can have a good rest, but she looks listless after resting too much. Last night, she was not in a good mood. He suddenly remembered the discussion about the role of Avatar that day, and it felt just right, but he still had to find out what the person himself meant. Director Cameron has a play that my company has invested in. Do you want to try it? Eva was drinking oatmeal porridge slowly. When she heard this, she paused and looked over with her beautiful eyes. Chapter 905 Princess Pandora. Subscribe, vote. Director Cameron's movies are very tempting. After being in the industry for a long time, following Lemon's filming, and being exposed to the production business, her horizons have been raised. She is no longer the outsider who had no connections to take on movies. In addition, she feels a little touched by Lemon's thoughtful words. He cares about me. Can I go? Although she said so, there was a smile in the corner of her eyes. Of course, she likes life on the screen. Producing is also about contact with movies, but it is different from being an actor after all. Once you are infected with the energy of figuring out the role and understanding the script, how can you get rid of it? They are casting. Why can't you go? You have the grades. Lemon said jokingly. Eva rolled her eyes at him and said, I mean, will director Cameron agree to my role? Well, it's a bit troublesome. I promised him not to interfere with the filming and I can't recommend any role to him. Seeing that Eva was choked, Lemon said, it's just that he doesn't care much about who will play the role. He is focusing on 3D composition and perfecting the storyboard, so it should work. But can you accept performing in front of a green screen with a helmet and a set of sampling equipment? Leo didn't agree because of this. Like Andy Serkis who played Garlem, Eva suddenly lost interest. She also studied acting at the Art Academy. Of course, she felt that Cameron was too heretical. If the person is not me, how can it be considered a performance? Isn't it interesting? You give a model a soul, just like your incarnation, and every move bears your mark. As a director, Lemon has the same thinking as Cameron. After all, actors are just a part of a play. As long as the effect can be achieved, it doesn't matter how the actors interpret it. I was a little worried that you couldn't stand the tyrant's bad temper and quarreled with him on the set. Lemon reminded seriously, directors are people with a strong desire for control, and he is even more so. When Eva heard this, she thought about all aspects. She was stunned for a long time and hesitated, but from a feeling point of view, working with a director like Cameron was indeed what she looked forward to. What's more, she had been staying at home for a long time recently, and her desire to perform came up again. Finally, she nodded and said, I'd love to go, but I'm afraid it will embarrass you. It's a small matter. If it really doesn't work, I wouldn't bring it up. He always considers whether it is appropriate when considering the people around him. The original Zoe Saldana is just a third-tier actress at this time. In terms of qualifications, she is not as good as Eva. Moreover, it is a project solely funded by Firefly. It is common sense for the crew to take care of her. When he talked to Cameron on the phone, the other party really didn't care about this little thing, but still said cautiously that she would play Neytiri, the princess of the Omadikea tribe of the Navi on Pandora, and she had to shoot according to his requirements. Lemon pretended to guarantee this, and then revealed it. Another week later, Assistant Mace knocked on the door and said, Columbia is ready. Are you going, boss? Yes, the competition in the summer season is fierce. In the current market, Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs defeated Transformers 2, Revenge of the Fallen with a slight advantage, and occupied the throne of North American box office champion. The former opened in 4,099 theaters in the first weekend, with an average of about $10,370 per theater, earning $42.5 million. To be honest, it is not as popular as the first two films. I think the audience is also picky about the content, which makes the producer Blue Sky Studios a little disappointed. Of course, the budget of the series has always been well controlled. By the third film, it only rose to $90 million US. There must be a profit. Perhaps this can be regarded as a point that Blue Sky Studios is better than Pixar. But after this incident, if Blue Sky does not focus on developing new series, the old capital will not be so delicious. As for the typical short-term project Transformers, the second week fell a little bit, with a drop of 61.3%, earning $42.2 million in the second week, and the single theater instantly dropped to about 10,000, which was surpassed by the average figures of Star Wars Episode 1. The Phantom Menace, The Lord of the Rings 3, The Return of the King, Spider-Man 2, Iron Man 1 and other works in the same period. Among them, Spider-Man 2 is the most valuable for comparison. Both were released during the Independence Day period, and both were the second installment of the series created by the original team. Both were released in the big year when the movie market was extremely hot, but the decline of Transformers 2 was about 125% of Spider-Man 2. It is clear which of the two has better stamina. In other words, although the Autobots are popular, the lack of plot depth is still a major flaw, and the audience rarely comes back. It is also worth mentioning that Universal's new film Public Enemy No. 1, which ranks third in the weekly chart, brings together three very popular movie stars, Johnny Depp, Marion Cotillard, and Christian Bale, but it did not sell well to the audience. This once again proves that movies cannot easily win high box office by piling up big names. 3,334 theaters opened, and the first week revenue was $26.17 million, and the single theater was less than $7,850, which made everyone laugh. The freshness of Rotten Tomatoes website is 65%. 119 votes in favor. 65 votes against. The media review barely passed with 61 points. The reputation is also inferior to the similar themes American Gangster, The Departed and Taxi. According to the current star power and high expenditure of this cast, it is estimated that it will have to pay 20 to 30 million yuan for copyright and a flying operation. I originally thought that I would make a small profit, win the Oscar, and improve the image of the label, but I didn't expect that the reputation and results were not obtained. The senior management of Universal was silent. In contrast, the staff of Columbia and Marvel were so annoying that they laughed during the meeting. The worse the opponent is, the more favorable it is for Thor to be launched in the market. Now Captain America can't even keep the top 10 of the weekly chart. There is almost no room for operation. It is time for Thor to hold the superhero flag. Columbia executives first introduced it will be released on July 11th. And the theater distributors will allocate 3,400 theaters. Judging from the previous preheating market effect, the audience's acceptance of Thor is very high, and the popularity base is not low. As soon as the voice fell, the Columbia people congratulated Lyman, and each of them was like a smart person. There was no other reason. After the internal preview, both the theater representatives and the top executives of the two companies understood that Thor, a test of the gods coming down to earth, with a relaxed tone and some plots of brotherly grievances, was far more innovative than Captain America's opening scene of World War II. In addition, from the perspective of special effects, it is also more macro and easier to catch people's attention. In other words, Thor has a good chance of surpassing Captain America, and the competitors began to lose ground during the schedule, which reduced the risk a little bit. How can we not be happy? After introducing the progress of all parties, Lyman concluded, based on the market of Thor and Marvel's existing user base, we should achieve a box office of over 85 million in the first weekend of the movie's release, surpassing Captain America. Chapter 906 Opening, Subscriptions, Votes Required. When Thor started its promotion, the audience was quite concerned. In addition to the large scale of flying posters in subways and stations that attracted attention, the two trailers were also laid out through TV windows to whet the appetite of movie fans. Even the footage of Thor, the son of Odin, coming to the world was uploaded to the internet and exceeded 10 million views in a few days, becoming an instant hit. There is no doubt that Thor can arouse such momentum, which has proved that the Marvel brand is popular enough and the audience is not too unfamiliar with it. In addition, Thor's martial arts value is quite powerful, and his appearance seems to have twists and turns, which quickly attracted the popular science party and the speculation party, and they fought fiercely in the comments area. For a time, Thor became a hot search on Yahoo before it was released, which directly boosted the sales of comics. To be honest, Marvel Entertainment's comic business has good revenue after several popular characters have achieved results. But because they have to support so many employees and store channels, the profit does not seem to be high. For example, in the peak quarter of Iron Man comics, the total revenue was 20.5 million, but the net profit was only 5.3 million, which is better than nothing, especially compared with the broad comic market base in Japan. American comics are really in decline and can only choose movies to become the top product. The same is true for DC. The game department makes more money than selling comics alone. And seeing that the publicity effect is so good, especially the pre-sales of Fandango and Movie Tickets, the two largest online movie ticket websites in the United States, are quite good. The two companies have attracted 350,000 viewers to place orders together. Don't think it's too little. The United States, where movies and the internet are well developed, just doesn't like to buy movie tickets online. I vaguely remember that the financial report released by Mayo in 2012 showed that when this platform occupied 52% of the ticketing market share in the mainland, all the theater business websites in the United States on the other side of the Pacific only accounted for 20% of the North American ticketing market. As Penguin Ma said, it is precisely because the industries and sectors in the mainland are not as mature and flawless as those in developed countries that many huge opportunities can be created to use the mobile internet to promote market improvements. In other words, any new technology is more easily embraced in emerging markets. It is not difficult to understand that the mainland is ahead of the United States in digitalization, including online distribution, online ticket sales, and mobile payments, because the credit system launched by American banks has penetrated into the American people, and everyone has adapted to it for decades, including driving to queue up to buy tickets. The situation of all kinds of good news has brought another consequence, that is, the major cinema chains have quietly raised Marvel to the highest priority level of cooperation, because most of the ticket purchase websites on the market are invested by the shareholders of the theaters, and they want to incubate, but they are constrained by the fact that most movies will not engage in pre-sales, so there is no need. Industry insiders can also see that the market potential shown by Thor can already cover DC, especially the procrastination and hesitation of DC's owner Warner in resource allocation, which is in sharp contrast. This situation has also made many forecasting agencies active. They actually can't understand why DC, which has been suppressing Marvel in the film and television industry for 20 to 30 years, and has old popular characters such as Batman and Superman, has suddenly reversed its position. What is even more surprising is that in many people's expectations, the Fantastic Four, X-Men, Spider-Man, and the Hulk were all lost, and the Marvel ship was broken, but now it seems that Marvel can still be aggressive in the market, and even characters like Thor seem to be very interesting after development. One reviewer from Nielsen even joked, in the hands of Lyman, more than 5,000 Marvel characters seem to have value, which is incredible. Looking at DC on the other hand, it still can't get out of the comfort zone of Batman and Superman. The only V for Vendetta and Watchmen outside the system are not successful, which makes them shrink their foot back. But they don't think about it. One is planned and focused on the overall situation, shooting and developing with the overall and entertainment nature of Marvel. The other is simply Bruce Wayne in DC's skin. The atmosphere of deep hatred and deep hatred will either produce a masterpiece or be boycotted. The audience comes to enjoy the movie, and most of them still like to watch exciting movies. In addition, Warner itself has the copyrights of works such as Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings after the merger with New Line, which development value is not higher than other DC characters. Is this account really that easy to calculate? The time of discussion and expectation always passes quickly. On Thursday, July 9th, the teams of Marvel and Columbia who are docking the Thor project temporarily gathered at the Chinese Grand Theater, because tonight is the premiere plus midnight show to see whether it will be supported by the audience. As for tomorrow's release weekend, in addition to competing against old works that are no longer at their peak, Thor will also face the challenges of three competitors, namely Universal's Bruno, Fox's School Beauty I Love You, and Seashell Films' investment in The Day of the Hero. Among them, The Day We Got Married is a gay film, a typical canon fodder in the schedule, and the comedy of Fox will not perform particularly well. The leading actor and director are not famous, so the only one who can pose a slight threat to the audience of Thor is Sacha Baron Cohen, who plays the male lead again after Borat. This guy has a good audience appeal, and he has been running around in talk shows and interviews during the promotion period, which has also attracted the attention of fans. However, an original project is still at a disadvantage compared to Marvel after the label has become famous. Thor has attracted much attention. No matter how hard the creators of Bruno work, there is still a big gap in the competition. The media also basically discusses Thor, which makes the traffic of Bruno really not enough. Sitting in the luxury car, Liam Hemsworth looked at Chris Hemsworth in the front seat, who was repeatedly told by his agent, and he couldn't help feeling a little impetuous. Just a year ago, he and Chris were both unknown little people and participated in the audition together. But now his second brother has become famous. The label of Thor has brought him great attention and huge exposure for publicity. But what about himself? He is still a small actor who wants to gain a foothold in Hollywood. This psychological gap makes Lyman feel a little awkward. On the one hand, he fantasizes about replacing Chris's position and seizing the opportunity. On the other hand, he thinks that after Chris becomes famous, he can also guide him and just do his job seriously. In short, he feels conflicted and envious. Through the bustling view through the car window, the itinerary arrangement ringing in his ears, including the financial team, the second brother Chris is like a star who will be trained by the company. Everyone has high hopes for him, don't they? But then again, this time he can step onto the red carpet and get a moment of spotlight, which is also a blessing. Those cheers and screams fell into his ears and echoed continuously, which was wonderful. It's a pity that the protagonist is not him. Lyman wants. Chapter 907 Asgard God Realm. Subscribe, vote. Have you seen the trailer? It's about the battle in Asgard. I hope the director can make this scene well. In the AMC theater, Harry sat in his seat, eating fries and drinking happy water, while he stopped to chat excitedly with his friend Dibbit on his left. Both of them are 9th graders, which is exactly the age group covered by Marvel's audience. They can watch Thor without their parents' company. After all, most Marvel movies are PG-13. Compared to this, I'm more looking forward to Natalie's performance. She is my queen. Dibbit, with a few pimples on his face, looked obsessed with beauty rather than heroes. From the conversation between the two, we can also see the hot spots of Thor's publicity. One is to make a fuss about the movie itself and the Marvel label, and the other is to focus on Natalie as the face of the movie. Although the male lead Chris Hemsworth has also tilted a lot of exposure resources, it is to pave the way for the future and enhance the copyright value. It is not expected that he can attract many audiences and convert them into fans. Among the three Marvel giants that are about to take shape, this one is more focused on public relations in Australia and surrounding areas in terms of the company's strategic level. It is inevitable that he will be unfamiliar to the local American people, and his popularity has always lagged behind Downey and Evans. But even if you don't realize it later, Chris's performance and his ability to maintain the character image without being stupid and becoming famous are indeed worth signing and incorporating into the camp. What's more, he became popular because of his association with Thor, not because he has accumulated a certain foundation, so it is easier to obedient and reduce costs. After all, from a realistic perspective, the Avengers has created so many movie stars, and someone always needs to sacrifice to make room for salary. According to Kevin, that is, someone must be suitable for breaking through salary control, holding the bargaining power, and then colliding with other economic teams. The third brother can act for only 5 million. Why do you dare to shout 10 million? In the same way, everyone's salary is moderately controlled, and no one can get a salary that is several times higher than the salary cap of the main creator, which is also extremely helpful to the life of the entire team. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up, and the audience's hearts began to beat. The promotion before the release, as well as the media and network traffic, had already made the movie extremely popular. The content of Thor was more suitable for the current market trend than Captain America, and it would definitely not be worse. The highlight came at the beginning of the movie. The appearance of the Frost Giants, their ferocious appearance, and the great power of freezing everything brought the audience to the realm of God, which was something that Captain America and Iron Man could not touch. Although the Marvel universe was a bit confused in terms of the setting of the force value, such as the often ridiculed 50-50 split between Captain America and the forced addition of the Iron Man. In fact, the roles had different divisions of labor, especially the system rebuilt by Lyman and Kevin. Captain America and Iron Man are both heroes with leadership qualities, so they don't have to have much lethality on the front battlefield. But in short, among the three giants, Thor is an absolute AoE general, and the Hulk is a meat shield and the second output point supplement. In other words, Thor may not be the most important character, but he can definitely show the most hardcore force, and he deserves it. In addition, after the change of director Taika Waititi, the grandeur of the special effects scenes has almost been raised to a higher level. It is definitely not the childish fight of the original version. The storm swept, and most of the earth was frozen like a natural disaster. The picture is exquisite and shocking. When the Frost Giants took steps to transform the earth, A rainbow light column led to the heavens, and the armored warriors walked out of the light column. The old man in the lead, Anthony Hopkins, held a scepter, wore golden armor, and had a cold face. This is a battle of magic that almost tears the world apart. The exciting music, the confrontation between magic and body training, the style is instantly different from the previous 3 Marvel movies. The strong Michael Bay style is very clever to catch the audience's appetite. Alas, the theater chain must like this picture very much. Looking at the attention of the audience around him, a touch of satisfaction appeared on his face. Brown, a columnist and film critic from the Pioneer newspaper, wrote silently in his notes. But even if he doesn't like it, this gentle middle-aged man also clearly understands that the current market and audience are not decided by him. He just hopes that Hollywood can be more creative. Even so, he didn't criticize too much, but his personal evaluation would not be too high and unoriginal. He feels that the current film industry is full of impetuousness. Even original projects are rarely cared about. Everyone is repeating. On the screen, the nearly 2-minute battle is coming to an end. The Asgardian warriors successfully drove away the frost giants and killed their hometown to break through the capital, took away their race's treasure power core, and then found a baby. Odin took the purple-skinned child, sighed silently, and used magic to change his skin color. After a while, Odin whispered, "I hope he can bring real peace. Let's go back." The camera returned to the Asgard. A majestic mountain stood above the sea of clouds. Deep in the jungle, a giant wolf was running forward, but was nailed to the ground by an ice spear. Along with the howling of the giant wolf, a child about 10 years old cheered and dragged his trophy. But when he returned to the palace, he saw his father Odin gently teaching a blonde boy how to use divine power. His boasting made Odin serious. Remember, Loki, a wise king, must not be keen on killing. "Father, I just want you to praise me." Loki couldn't say this and could only look at his father's disappointed eyes and continue to be criticized. "You are forbidden to go to the dark forest to hunt beasts in the future." Little Thor just smiled foolishly and followed his father's pace to leave. Unlike his brother, young Loki was precocious. He lowered his head, the sky outside gradually darkened, the last few rays of sunlight stretched his shadow very long, and he looked at the throne alone. "Father." Loki clenched his fists and murmured sadly, and such things almost accompanied Loki throughout his youth. The more he wanted to show off, the stricter Odin was with him. The occasional warmth from the family could only be obtained from his honest brother. Time passed, and the two princes grew up. The inheritance of power gradually became something that could not be ignored. Loki didn't really want to sit in that position, but he wanted to prove that he was far better than his brother Thor. But Odin's choice once again made him sad. He didn't understand how he was worse than his brother, so bad that his father was very sure that Thor was the only successor. That day, he took a deep look at the scepter and turned to the kingdom of frost giants. Chapter 908 Warrior Park Mage. Please subscribe and vote. It's really the eldest Prince Thor, but he's too straightforward, without any cover-up. One is his biological son, and the other is adopted, so there's no choice. But when Loki finds out, he won't become a villain, will he? He's a villain. He's originally from the Frost clan. He can't hide it anymore. His skin has turned back to purple. Watching Loki go to the Frost Giant Kingdom, the awakening of his blood, Loki couldn't believe it, as if he had thought of something, and the theater suddenly murmured. However, from the perspective of God, the audience is no exception to this result. After all, the plot is very straightforward, and the director doesn't want to play any riddles. When Loki smelled the scent of conspiracy, he was regarded as their new king by the Frost Giants, and then it became natural for the Frost Giants to frequently invade the Asgard domain. In other words, after nearly half an hour of foreshadowing, the main line and style have laid the foundation. As long as the rhythm is controlled well, the audience's patience is not exhausted, and the atmosphere can be livened up. No tricks were needed. Loki returned to the palace to instigate Thor, causing Thor to take ownership of the country and bring his warriors into conflict with the Frost Giants. The audience knew that his move was very successful. After all, Odin had always taught the two princes not to be keen on killing and provoke war. Sure enough, even though Thor's side had the upper hand and Thor's hammer was pouring out thunder and power, Odin was still very disappointed. In the middle of the plot, Thor was exiled to the earth by Odin, hoping that he could learn how to be a monarch and have the responsibility and courage in his heart. If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. And with Thor's arrival, there was also his artifact hammer. Just like in the trailer, the sound of Thor's hammer falling from the sky quickly attracted Coulson, the agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. This familiar face couldn't help but make some old Marvel fans in the theater excited. They were connected. So far, in addition to the short prince role, the movie has entered the more relaxed and funny Earth experience part. Especially when the high and mighty prince of the god's domain met the female scientist played by Natalie. He kept making fools, but his simple and naive character made the audience laugh. For example, he was hit by a car several times, was completely unfamiliar with the use of various electrical appliances, and couldn't lift a hammer, all of which seemed so unserious. If you want to make an analogy, it's comparable to the performance of Tang Sanzang when Sun Wukong went to the west to obtain the scriptures, but ended up with a blank document without scriptures. The mixed feelings of shaking his heart, in the heavy rain, under the gaze of Hawkeye, Coulson, Jane and others. Thor knelt on the ground and doubted his life. Why can't I lift the hammer? Has my father really given up on me? I can't go back. Then, Loki appeared and continued to fool him. While Thor was wavering, he told Thor that he was the king of the god's domain now, which made Thor even more self-destructive. This is a scam that is easy to expose, but poor Thor has suffered such a blow that he can no longer tell the difference. Seeing that his words worked, Loki left in style, but unexpectedly, the intimate sister came online. Jane, played by Natalie, cared for Thor and encouraged him, allowing Thor to slowly cheer up, so the relationship between the two quickly heated up. After this change, Thor put down his pride and learned to adapt to life on Earth. He slowly shed the shell of the prince in terms of dealing with people and experience. When his men F4 came to Earth, Thor also began to know a lot of things and understood how much his brother had changed and how many wrong things he had done without telling everyone. Sensing all this, Loki sighed slightly, hesitated for a few seconds, and released the top battle-ready destroyer of the god's domain under the throne. There are countless bones, and if you can't deceive, just kill the hidden dangers. And the destroyer is worthy of the name of the god's domain. The destructive power and defense shown are terrible. Hanging F4 to fight. It can't be stopped. Iron Man and the Hulk can fight this big guy. Isn't SHIELD responsive? Just when the audience was looking forward to Iron Man or the Hulk appearing to stop the destroyer from showing off his power, the protagonist was of course Thor. From being high above, to being infiltrated into the mortal world, from being deceived to rising up to the determination to discipline his brother and protect order, the camera switched back and forth between Loki's frown and Thor's rising kingly momentum. In the end, Loki held back and was unwilling to use the Rainbow Bridge to launch a Star Destroyer attack, and the restrictions set by Odin on the hammer, who can hold this hammer and deserve it, and have the power of thunder, was also achieved by Thor. Thor's hammer was sensed and lifted into the air, and the destroyer, who was just awesome, was killed in one move. At this moment, the frost giants began to invade the god's domain again, and Thor met his brother Loki again. On the screen, Loki confided his heart to the awakened Odin. "Father, I never wanted to get the throne. I just want to be treated equally with Thor." "Brother." Thor looked puzzled, but probably wondering why it turned out like this. "I'm not your brother." Loki turned to look at Thor. "Never. Are you crazy? Why do you do this?" "Am I crazy? I'm really crazy." Loki stared at Thor closely. At the end of the story, the Rainbow Bridge was destroyed, and Loki was also caught in the storm and fell into the void. In Thor's desperate roar, Odin on the throne also murmured in pain. "Is it over? Damn, what kind of director is this? Loki just died like this? One is arrogant and the other is stupid. It's a pity that they both woke up too late." Can't Odin praise Loki? He just wants encouragement. I think it's pretty good. It's my type. Let's go. Don't worry, there are still Easter eggs. The theater was full of discussions, but the magical thing was that most of the audience sat in their seats waiting. Just like Stanley's cameo as a driver who wants to use a car to pull out Thor's hammer in this movie, makes movie fans feel at home. When watching Marvel movies, many places can make people smile knowingly. The Easter egg link is naturally the top priority and is related to the direction of the subsequent content. This is also a wonderful way to cultivate a sense of belonging and even brand recognition. You are here, Loki. The screen lit up, and Loki, who was not in the burial storm in the depths of the universe, frowned. Who are you? How did you know me? I saved you, Loki. Are you really willing? The voice sounded again, with bewitching. You are so dejected that you can never return to the Asgard god realm. What is your purpose? Loki was absent-minded for a moment, and then his eyes became clear. We need you to go to Earth and find something for us. The camera slowly zoomed in, and a scepter inlaid with yellow gems was emitting a faint fluorescence and floated in front of Loki. This is a very useful weapon. It was completely over. Chapter 909, Midnight Victory. Please subscribe and vote. Unequal competition. We can only hope that our movies will not be restricted too much and get the results they deserve. After the premiere of Thor, an executive of Fox, the producer of Bruno, shook his head and communicated with his colleagues. As for the reception later, they did not go. Sometimes, it is normal for the opponent to care more about the market situation than the original owner. Besides, the two companies are indeed in a competitive relationship, so they are not so close. Of course, competition and cooperation are the mainstream in Hollywood. The people in Fox are not hostile to anything. Marvel movies are well made and can make the audience buy them, but so what? There is no end to the money to be made, and the market is not something that man media can take over alone. From this perspective, it is just a studio that can be on the table. Fox is not bad, but it is not very smooth this year. Warner also has something to say so in the rational analysis of Fox and others. Thor performed well, and the positive and enthusiastic voices of the audience after the show were enough to prove something. When the advance field survey report collected by the request was released, Thor had an 83% satisfaction rate, an average attendance rate of over 95%, and a better online reputation than Captain America. Compared with Bruno's 85% satisfaction rate and an attendance rate of just over 80%, it even received a certain degree of goodwill evaluation. It can only be inferior in terms of performance. After all, one is a commercial blockbuster with a wide audience, and the other is a comedy with a bit of secular satire exposing hypocrisy. Better media reviews will not affect anything. On the contrary, if the media review of Bruno is worse than that of a popcorn movie, it is worth reflecting on the film's creators. In short, it is very passive. Although the two belong to different directions in terms of subject matter, the overlap of the audience age group is still quite high. Fox really has no confidence in how to make the main audience abandon Thor and support Bruno. It can only be said that the chips for comparison are not good enough. There is a sense of frustration that you have lost 90% before the game even starts. The so-called green leaves against red flowers is also such an image. It's late at night. After the cocktail party, Lyman also received the sales information of derivative products from Hasbro. After the company's employees summarized the data of Thor and Captain America, Lyman could clearly see the sharp contrast between the two. Among them, Captain America's audience evaluation was lower, and the first-level image products only sold more than 1.2 million after the first show. But the linkage effect of the brand surrounding was good. Perhaps because Chris Evans has a good personal image and is very suitable for the promotion of some products. As for Thor, Chris Hemsworth still needs time and works to manage his personal star market and fan base, but because Thor's appearance is more in line with the current viewing trend than Captain America, and the special effects scenes look much more shocking, the expectations were met and aroused the desire of many fans to collect, and the first level derivative sold more than 2.1 million, but the brand linkage effect was not as good as Captain America. So according to this performance prediction, Thor is likely to survive this peak and win more box office and a flying home entertainment market than Captain America. The profit margin may be balanced to exceed Iron Man. After all, the more preparation is made, the higher the value of Marvel. Even if the quality is not as good, the popularity is more, and fans are still willing to pay for it. This aspect will only become easier in the future. In other words, if the total revenue of Iron Man is taken as a benchmark, starting with Thor, the production of subsequent movies will be easier to blow it into slag, which can be said to be on the normal route of top-hype operation. Of course, at present, Lyman and the company's employees are just happy that Thor did not fail. Although there was no more amazing market feedback, success is enough. Columbia headquarters gradually lost popularity, and all the big guys have gone home to rest. Only the backbone of the promotion team responsible for the Thor project is still waiting for the specific box office data around the office. They need to arrange the subsequent schedule based on this, and whether to increase the publicity or give up as soon as possible if it does not meet expectations. This requires market feedback to tell them what to do. Knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Manfred, one of the vice presidents of the distribution department, received a report from his subordinate with a happy face. "Boss, good news. The audience's response is very good. Everyone is very satisfied, and almost no one left in the middle of the show." "Oh. How much is the box office for the midnight show?" 362 theaters, earned $6.878 million US. The subordinate said happily. The midnight show can have about 19,000 per theater. It is basically the dominant one in the quieter schedule, but even in the summertime period, it can also rush into the top 10 of the annual box office. Don't forget that Thor is released later than Captain America, which already has a little advantage. In addition, it is a popular summer movie, so it is easy to become a representative of the list. Manfred nodded slightly, feeling much more relaxed. By the way, how about Bruno, The Beauty and the School, and other films showing in the same period? Bruno earned $4.5 million in 300 theaters. The Beauty and the School earned $2.39 million in 320 theaters. Moreover, the audience satisfaction rating of The Beauty and the School failed to pass, only 34%. The updated freshness rating on the Rotten Tomatoes website was only 11%, 8 votes in favor and 64 votes against. However, the media and the audience still bought into Bruno. "Really?" Manfred said, taking over the detailed data evaluation and browsing through it carefully. "Let the media and Yahoo take action and intensify the promotion of Thor. It must achieve good results in the first week." Afterwards, the people from Columbia contacted the publicity department of Blue Butterfly Pictures and planned to use the interaction between Chris and Natalie, the visual perception of the film itself, the duel between the warrior, Thor, and the wizard, Loki, and other topics to start a new round of hype for the content of the film, guide word of mouth, and let fans continue to be keen on digging foreshadowing and exploring the details of Easter eggs, and strongly attract traffic. It has to be said that in such a show, Marvel, which has purposeful development, is really very adaptable and can even more easily cause rapid publicity than other commercial blockbusters. Overseas, the radiation of American comics is not high, but Marvel has accumulated slowly through several movies, and it is not so inferior to the achievements of North America. Especially in the mainland, with the help of China Film and the itinerary publicity that Lyman himself took care of, the main creators will always appear to create momentum, or find spokespersons and singers to help promote it. This kind of emphasis has made Marvel accumulate fans in the mainland much faster than in the previous life. All of this has witnessed the growth of Marvel's brand value. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 910, Dream Stealing. Please subscribe and vote. Nolan's project has been negotiated. On the first day of the release of Thor, it was no surprise that it showed the dominance of a commercial blockbuster, and it also made all the stacker holders breathe a sigh of relief. The main creators were on a roadshow and promotional tour, and the group flew around the country, but Lyman was in the office listening to Joseph's report. Just like in his previous life, after filming The Dark Knight, Nolan took a long break and pondered for a long time, and then he and his brother Jonathan took out the script of Inception. The two parties started talking in early June, and by July, most of the preparatory work for the film was done. In order to obtain the copyright of the project, Firefly also offered generous conditions, including a director's salary of $20 million plus 10% of the box office profit, and his studio invested $32 million as a producer, accounting for 20% of the established budget of $160 million. In this way, Firefly has added another project to its development this year. Lyman listened silently, and after asking Nolan whether he had started casting, he planned to go there. He did not follow up on this matter throughout the process because the two sides have been in the honeymoon period of cooperation. It was just that before Lyman went there, he specially called Lyman to let him contact the Big Five to release the news. Inception is very dependent on publicity and promotion. It is a typical project that has both good reputation and box office. It has a wide audience and needs long-term operation. Naturally, it is not something that Lionsgate can handle. Its channels are still a little bit short. As for which company to choose for commission distribution, Lyman's plan is definitely to give priority to Universal and Columbia, followed by Warner and Fox, and finally Paramount. Among them, Universal's production business for blockbusters is a relatively low proportion among several studios, but once it is willing to operate, resources will not overlap, and the level of investment is very high. It is considered the most ideal partner for Inception. It is very likely that a blockbuster will be promoted in an important period without distracting attention. In Nolan's studio, the storyboards, character templates, costumes, props and other drawings of Inception filled several support boards, and there was a large oval table in the middle of the room. Nolan, Jonathan, Lyman, Firefly producer Blake Cole and the core cameraman of the director's behind-the-scenes team, Wale Svister. This was the third time the two had worked together, sat together. How are you doing recently? Not bad, busy days are very fulfilling. Haha. Well, let's discuss the casting first. Lyman took out the script and read it carefully. He knew that this play was a dream theme conceived by combining the concepts of Memento and The Prestige. Blake Cole first mentioned the shooting budget is $160 million, and it is an original work, so we have to invite top actors with market appeal to reduce the difficulty of publicity. There are not many male actors who have this capital. Johnny Depp, Christian Bale, Nicolas Cage, Leonardo DiCaprio. Jonathan echoed and reported a string of names. The male lead, Dom Cobb, is the leader of a group of dream thieves. His age is set to be around 30 to 40 years old, so Cage is not suitable. Whether it is his appearance, age or the setting of a dream thief, he feels awkward. As the director who has worked with Cage the most, even if Lyman admires him very much, and the relationship between the two sides is good, but when it comes to familiarity and positioning, Lyman has to speak out. Depp is not good either. After playing a role with a very personal style like the pirate captain, the audience's impression of him has been stuck. In the past 2 years, the only police and gangster film he took on outside the system, Public Enemies, we all know that everyone's evaluation of him is very bad. Before he left the Caribbean series, he would have been restricted. His popularity was high, but he was also trapped in this role. Blake followed the analysis. What about Bale? Nolan shook his head when he heard it. I want to work with different actors. The Prestige, Batman 1 and 2, 3 movies in a row. Then let's go with Leo. His image and popularity are good. Lyman made the final decision. Leo is indeed suitable. Blake, then you can ask his economic team about the schedule later. Nolan turned his head and said, the male lead has been initially decided, and the subsequent roles can be found directly according to the behavioral logic defined in the script, which has a wider range of choices. Actors like Cillian Murphy, Michael Caine, Tom Hardy, who are very mature in acting, in addition to the popular young actress Ellen Page, who is also, in order to match the acting school. The entire tentative actor team is almost the same, except that Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is known as Little Heath Ledger, was replaced by the genuine one. On the other hand, after playing Joker, Heath Ledger had more performance opportunities, but the invitation call from Lyman also freed up the schedule from September to October. He had fewer scenes, and did not need to follow the group all the time. Nolan was very excited. He had an idea, and could get financial support to realize the idea. It was a blessing to have a sponsor who could understand his meaning. He was satisfied that the production team was professional, and did not interfere randomly. the production team would not be an amateur guiding the professionals. Soon at noon, everyone took a break. During lunch, Lyman set the tone and went back to the company. Looking through the progress of each project, generally speaking, everything was on the right track. If nothing unexpected happens, this year's performance will definitely increase a lot compared to last year. The funds saved can just be used to promote the animation business. Just like Columbia's Spider-Man and Warner's DC, although the film is the leader, the special charm of animation and its guiding role for the audience cannot be ignored. Basically, the film is moving forward in big strides, and animation should not lag behind too much. It can also play a positive role in increasing the value of copyright by providing it to TV stations around the world for free broadcasting. Of course, Man Media already has an Illumination Entertainment in the animation field in the entertainment map, but Christopher Meledandri holds 35% of the shares of this subsidiary, and the Despicable Me project developed by it is about to be hatched. Lyman still needs to spend effort to establish an animation department under the Marvel system to compete with it. It's not that Lyman rejects anything. After all, Christopher Meledandri is the only animation talent that can be won over on the market. If the conditions are not high, he will probably be won over by Universal. So it is understandable that he does not provide Marvel business to Illumination Entertainment, which will distract the company's attention and share the profits. Lyman is of course happy that this subsidiary produces more profits, but it is not so acceptable to hold the profits produced by Marvel resources. Anyway, in Lyman's mind, Illumination Entertainment is a cash cow that can compete with Blue Sky Animation and DreamWorks Animation. It may not be of high proportion, but there is definitely demand. Chapter 911 First week wait, subscriptions, vote. In the following 2 days, the crew of Inception has been preparing for the roles. Nolan first recruited his direct actors, such as Scarecrow Murphy and Butler Kane, both of whom are supporting roles, with a total of $5.5 million. In fact, the salary ratio of actors in this play is quite high. In addition to the special effects CG requirements, the expenditure is not cheap, and Leo's salary problem is also not small. Of course, he is worth the price. In the series of movies he has starred in the past, excluding the Titanic that made him popular all over the world, even the Oscar-winning movies can bring at least $50 million to investors. No matter what film he shoots, the return rate has always remained above 125%. His personal charm, as well as his gradually mature performance and broad acting range, can make him loved by audiences of all ages. When his economic team replied that they could talk, Nolan also went there in person. Both of them are among the few who have achieved success in their respective fields. The atmosphere was very good when they chatted, and the discussion was in full swing. How the scene design was, how your role should be played, etc. easily touched Leo's heart. After signing a salary plan of about $37 million, the two sides reached a cooperation. When the main roles were settled, Heath Ledger also returned to Hollywood from the crew of The Lovely Bones to sign an actor contract with a salary of $5.4 million. The others were figuring out the roles while formulating the looks. It can be summarized in a few simple words. Find the feeling of the role before starting the filming. Inception is not a high challenge for the actors, but it requires a high level of ability from the director. It is not easy to play the concept of dreams and give people a suspenseful, brain-burning but not brain-burning feeling. Nolan carefully conceived the connection points between each fragment and pondered what narrative method to use for filming. July 13th, morning, Rust Manor. In the study, Lyman was browsing Yahoo, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb and other websites to pay attention to the audience's word-of-mouth trend of Thor. By this weekend, Thor, which has been released for 3 days, received more negative reviews than positive reviews from the media as usual, but for fans, it is like a dose of spiritual opium. There are funny and exciting moments. It is not boring to watch, and the soundtrack always connects the plot appropriately. Loki's pride and cunning, Thor's honesty and bravery. The scenes between the two brothers are very interesting, and Loki is also a villain that I can't hate. I always think he is very arrogant. The plot is cliched, but it is definitely a qualified and excellent work among commercial films. I recommend watching it. In the general trend of positive reviews from the audience, which is the opposite of the media, Rotten Tomatoes has maintained a freshness of 91% after the large-scale release of Thor. The audience rating collected on the CinemaScore website has also reached A, and the IMDb score is 7.2, which is better than 75% of the same type of movies. Such a result is not difficult to achieve with Marvel's fan base. With the bonus of fan sentiment and the lack of exposure, it is easy to promote, and it is not easy to lose word of mouth. So when the midnight show gathered momentum, Thor earned $36.22 million on the first day, including the midnight show, $24.87 million on Saturday, and $21.36 million on Sunday, becoming the biggest winner last week with a weekend score of $82.45 million. Such a market share is far higher than other films on the list, and it can be said that it almost occupies 52% of the audience in all theaters, and even diverted the audience of last week's champion Ice Age 3. Affected by it, Ice Age 3 dropped one place this week, with a drop of 42%. From the box office of nearly $68 million, the champion last week, it jumped to $38.2 million. This is still a young market, and the impact is the same. It can be said that it has experienced a lot of excitement. Even Transformers 2 directly dropped another 53%, falling to fourth, earning $23 million, and the new film Bruno ranked third, earning $28.57 million. However, if we analyze it carefully, it is not difficult to see that, because many Marvel fans have been looking forward to it for a long time, the audience of Thor directly contributed the highest single-day box office in the first week on Friday. Due to the influx of fanatical fans, the box office trend of Thor also showed a screening curve of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Friday accounted for 42% of the first 3 days, which is not much different from Twilight, The Grudge 2, Friday the 13th, The Matrix 2, 3, Harry Potter 3, 4, 5 Inches and other films. It is worth pondering that most of the above mentioned films are sequels, which vividly reflects the current situation of the release of American films. That is, the proportion of the first weekend is getting bigger and bigger, the average weekly decline is getting higher and higher, and the more topical the works are, the easier it is to consume. Market potential, rise quickly and fall quickly, just like bungee jumping. Previously, the box office sales trend of North American movies was mostly linear or sinusoidal, even rebounding from time to time, but now there is often a huge logarithmic decay. By the way, the box office of Thor dropped by about 32% on Saturday compared to Friday, which is among the highest among high-traffic movies. Because in general, the first day of a movie is a choice for the onlookers to know the quality and whether to watch it, so it is common for the box office on Saturday and Sunday to be higher than that on Friday. Otherwise, it proves that the movie's endurance is unreliable and the rhythm is going to be dragged down. For example, the screening curves of The Golden Compass and Eincut are quite flat, ups and downs, and then gone. However, with more and more traffic adaptations, less and less investment in original projects, and the increasingly perfect sequel structure in the era of Big Hype, combined with the current market situation, it will be found that a project has just consumed a large number of fans, which has become very common. The so-called long-term screening has been shortened from the previous operation cycle of more than 2 months to the current 4 or 5 weeks without subsequent momentum, constantly breaking the single-day box office record, and constantly refreshing the first week box office record. Attracting more fans to buy tickets on the first day of the release has become a fact that is not so easy to do in the market, but it is often done by high-quality blockbusters. If a movie could earn $80 million in the first week in the past, the forecasting agency could directly predict that it would land at $400 million in North America. But now, even if it earns $150 million in the first week, it may not exceed $400 million. Once the fans leave and the passion is gone, the trend will be no different from a collapse. So Thor can get such a result, plus better audience feedback than Captain America, we can be optimistic and look forward to it. Because high-traffic movies accumulate box office very quickly, even if they are not long-lasting, they are the best model to make theater operators happy, that is, vigorously promote for a few weeks and make room for new films without delaying either. Look, according to Lyman, Thor will rise to 4,100 theaters in the second week. Chapter 912. The set of Avatar. Please subscribe and vote. After a week or two of running in, Cameron Studios started filming Avatar soon after it had sufficient financial support. This matter could be concealed from outsiders, but not from insiders. Many people knew that Firefly invested more than 500 million yuan, and after adding the subsequent publicity, it went straight to more than 650 million yuan. While sighing at the strong cash flow of Man Media and Lemon's generosity, they were also inexplicably emotional, waiting to see the joke. This is not the way to spend money. But in fact, for Man Media today, this money is just the money earned from Captain America, plus a little bit, thrown in again, and continue to wait for it to double. As of July 15th, Captain America has just been released for 9 days, with a total box office of 279 million in North America, 126 million overseas, and a total of $405 million worldwide. Counting the production cost of 140 million, the publicity cost of 52 million, the transportation and labor expenses of 11 million, and the profit of 47 million from sponsorship placement and patch advertising. Excluding the theater chain, Fox can earn 38.9 million from the box office share, and the offline profit is expected to be 25.5 million, and the total revenue of the project operation is approximately $64.4 million. The project producer Marvel can earn 31.72 million from the box office, 167 million offline profit, 207 million image derivatives, more than 62 million brand peripherals, 13.2 million comics business, and the total revenue of Captain America is approximately $480.92 million. Among them, Hasbro, Hot Toys and other toy channel dealers also earned about $138 million, which can be said to be a win-win cooperation. Moreover, during the promotion process of North American distribution, Blue Butterfly Pictures has deepened its interest partnership with various links, and its operating costs have been relatively reduced. After all, the accumulation of channel syncing is actually a slow process. In addition to operating a good project that is enough to feed the upstream and downstream, it takes time to open up and connect a denser distribution network. Lyman and his team followed the big brothers again and again, using the channels of distributors such as Warner and Columbia to familiarize themselves with and improve themselves. Moreover, such repeated execution inevitably increased their foundation until they stood up and took on the responsibility. Just like a spider that spins silk and weaves a web with great patience, Lemon thought to himself, "Mez, I will visit the crew of Avatar in the next few days. If there is any work that needs to be handled, remember to send me an email." Lemon gave an order and asked her to book a flight to New Zealand. Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, is the headquarters of Weta Digital. It took about 20 minutes to drive along the main road, passing many turns and forks. In a comprehensive special effects base covering a large area, the crew of Avatar had been here for several days and shot a lot of materials. Among them, Weta Digital has 3 studios, 2 small and 1 large. The large one is equivalent to a football field and is one of the top interior locations in New Zealand. In addition, this country encourages film teams from other regions to come here to shoot and give subsidies while promoting tourism, so it receives many crews every year. On the morning of the 16th, on the set of Avatar, the scene to be filmed today is the scene where Jack enters the connection warehouse and transforms into a Pandora star to adapt to his body. Next to the set of basketball courts, the male lead Sam Worthington is being pulled by several staff members to wear motion capture equipment. "I have to adapt, I have to perform well, I have to adapt, I have to perform well." Worthington, who was being manipulated by a group of people as a tool, muttered to himself to cheer himself up. He was an actor born in stage plays and had no connections. The reason he was chosen was that Cameron thought that actors who had performed in stage plays would know how to magnify facial expressions and were suitable for mapping facial muscles, and that the salary was low, his appearance was above average, and his face shape was very good. This person's salary was only $300,000. After getting dressed, Worthington stood in front of a huge green screen, surrounded by several high-definition cameras. Even after training for a while, he was still a little confused and excited. Although he had never played a leading male role before, he had been in Hollywood and had worked with big names such as Bruce Willis and Sigourney Weaver. He had rich acting experience, but wearing such a big helmet and with dense stickers on his face for capturing, he was a little unfamiliar with his performance. Just like the former Traffic star Leo would ask, "People are not people, is this really acting?" But when the clapperboard was pressed and the tyrant's eyes were cast, he still tried his best to contribute his slightly exaggerated body movements according to the established role. In the whole play, the shots that really showed his face did not add up to more than 10 minutes. He was said to be the leading male role, and the shooting time was indeed the standard of the leading male role. The cameras were all around him, but it felt that there were not as many frontal shots as his previous supporting roles. Okay, next scene. The tyrant was very satisfied with the actors he had chosen. Of course, when he was in a bad mood, he would still scold them. It was not until noon that Lyman felt his mind was clearer. He contacted director Cameron for a while and prepared to go. In fact, the proportion of outdoor scenes in Avatar is lower than that of many commercial blockbusters. Even if they went to Zhangjiajikaiankansu in the mainland to shoot, what was presented was just a scene template of Pandora and the 3D fusion camera system. The actors performed in front of the green screen, and it was directly rendered with computer animation. Welcomed by John Landor, Lyman walked into the Weta digital base. Various product renderings highlighted the brilliant achievements of this special effects giant. Models of movies such as The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter can be seen everywhere inside, which reminds people how great the work results of Weta Digital are. While visiting all the way, he heard Cameron's familiar voice from a distance. Next scene, shoot in 10 minutes. When he entered, Cameron was stunned and then walked straight over. "You're here, Lyman." The tyrant was probably too busy, so he greeted him casually and then went back to the monitor to discuss with the cameraman with the storyboard. Lyman didn't bother him at work. The whole world knew that Cameron was a paranoid person and easily angered during filming. After Lyman spent a few times with him, he understood that the media were not talking nonsense. It was not until a few minutes later, when the actors were in place and the filming was about to begin, that Cameron took some time to chat with Lyman for a few more words. "Look, here, the fusion camera recording technology can be more intuitive and powerful. It has more environmental simulation than the ones demonstrated before. You can take a closer look." Cameron smiled and then looked at Lyman. "Remember what we discussed before? It already represents the future." "Of course I remember. If I have the chance, I will try to make a 3D movie." On the projection screen, in addition to the beautiful scenery of the wonders of Pandora, the fully armed Worthington was running and jumping hard. The inexplicable fusion of the two scenes made people admire the innovation of the industry brought about by technological progress. So this time, visiting the set is secondary. Learning how to use this set of techniques for filming is more important. Chapter 913 Warner Strikes Again. Green Lantern Corps. Subscribe. Vote. The label is virtual, but it can be converted into real benefits. I still remember that the roaring lion Leo logo was once a symbol of American movies, which made people sit down and watch steadily. As time goes by, MGM has fallen into decline. Although the general public still respects them, they have developed too many failed projects. In addition, the 007 series is difficult to innovate, which is also criticized, causing people's negative perception of MGM to surge, and they can no longer rely on the name to attract audiences to the cinema. MGM has a new movie. Do you want to go to see it? No, they make some bad movies every day. Therefore, MGM suffered the backlash after the decline of its production business, and even sold its copyright library to Sony. The end is not good. In today's comic movie market, DC is also repeating this process. The more poorly made the movie is, the more disappointed the fans who support them will be, and gradually a negative impression will arise. Not to mention the contrast with the hardworking Marvel. The damage is so profound. We must make a substantial DC movie. We cannot let Marvel occupy the largest market share for comic book adaptations. The more their influence continues to grow, the more pressure they will put on us. In a conference room at the Warner Brothers film building, a senior executive from the production department took out prepared documents to support his point of view. With the increasing number of channels for expressing opinions, there are already a large number of fans discussing comic book adaptations on the internet. They are the audience we should strive for. Fortunately, our company's The Dark Knight has the highest number of discussions. Unfortunately, Catwoman, Superman and Watchmen have failed one after another. The public has blamed the studio for the mistakes, which is not good for our company's image. What's worse is that Marvel has succeeded again. Under the leadership of that person, they have unearthed 3 popular characters, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Add to that the Hulk developed by Universal and Marvel. Fans are wondering if it is a problem with DC's own operations. This is a hard competition in the production business. The current situation is that Thor's second week dropped by 47%, which is a big drop, but it still attracted a lot of fans who overlap with us, and it was also under the premise that Marvel expanded its audience base in disguise. It is difficult for us to remain silent and give up the increasingly surging comic adaptation market. Several competitors in the same field, such as Fox, developed Wolverine in the X-Men system, and Columbia's Spider-Man achieved gratifying results in the game market outside of movies. Although DC has encountered some minor setbacks, the current young audience still has a large number of supporters. We still have a foundation. We need to manage goodwill and reasonably realize it, and we cannot deepen the stereotypes of passers-by audiences. What can we develop? If we fail again, won't it be more troublesome? In addition, we can't make back the money just by relying on fans. Copying comics is not pleasing, and not shooting according to the settings of comics is even more pleasing. How to compromise is a difficult problem. Is there a way to solve it? The executives asked a series of questions, and the two parties with different feelings about DC began to argue again. Such scenes have happened many times this year. The polarized reputation of Watchmen and the fact that it still lost money despite the strong support of fans really hit Warner's confidence in adaptation. Everyone knows that DC is a gold mine if it is well managed, but shareholders cannot accept the fact that they can't find a way to mine it and do useless work. In other words, it may not be good if it is filmed, which will easily affect the performance report and make many people who are waiting for dividends very annoyed, which is also a resistance. Although, watching Marvel's character resources divided into several parts, and they are all well developed, Fox, Columbia, and Universal have all reaped the dividends. It is indeed a difficult thing to let go. Well, DC has a much stronger market foundation than Marvel. Warner CEO Kevin Tsujihara said angrily, "We have so many popular characters, can't we develop any except Batman? DC has its own glory. You know, Marvel wanted to be acquired by DC twice before, so why did the confidence disappear at that time? In addition, second-rate Marvel characters such as Iron Man and Thor can be liked by people. Why can't DC do it? We are all representatives of superheroes. You can save the world, but I can't." Kevin Tsujihara sat in the first seat, thinking of the vastness of the comic adaptation market. He couldn't help but be tempted. If it's well made, it can earn 500 or 600 million yuan, and if it's a masterpiece, it can earn more than 1 billion yuan. Where can you find such a business? What do you think of the several adaptation plans submitted by DC? This is going to be decided. After all, the market is too tempting. No matter how risky it is, the return is also great. The birds of prey are not well known, and the sales of comics are not that high. The value of adaptation is not great. I recommend Green Lantern Corps. Such a project has a higher story. An ordinary person accidentally becomes a superhero, which is more dramatic. Among the several adaptation plans, considering the market audience base, Green Lantern Corps is indeed more attractive. The Flash is also good, but the length of the Flash is more suitable for TV series. The executives followed the boss's meaning and talked about the pros and cons of the project. Just as everyone thought, the DC department actually wrote a lot of scripts, but they were always shelved for one reason or another. This is why some people later complained that Warner was not very enthusiastic about developing DC projects. In addition to the fact that a failed movie would undermine production confidence, they themselves did not treat those unimportant characters as nodes for purposeful serial development. Only when the characters are valuable will they enter the review stage, but they are all focused on the individual. Even if they are linked, they are still played in the same system. For example, the characters in Batman that have space with Batman are still Batman-centered. In other words, the selling points have not been expanded, and the production concept is too conservative, for fear of spoiling the original market. Will the investment be too high? I have contacted special effects companies such as Industrial Light and Magic, Weta Digital, and Digital Domain. If you want to have enough expressiveness, the cost cannot be small, and you also need to hire some guaranteed movie stars. The budget must be more than 200 million. Moreover, the audience is spoiled. If they cannot be moved visually, how can the story be said? Kevin Tsujihara agreed. Large-scale investment is also a gimmick. As long as the corresponding results can be achieved, these are not a problem. In your opinion, the choice of director? Zack Snyder. He has no schedule. He is working with Will Smith on I'm Legend. Someone who knew about this responded. The Warner executives did not blame the director for the failure of Watchmen, and the fact that the Zack Snyder edited version was a big hit in the DVD market was enough to explain something. Then we have to think about it carefully. Chapter 914 Half-Blood Prince. Subscribe, vote. Even standing in the venue, I still couldn't stop the cheers coming from outside. Tonight, the 6th film in the Harry Potter series, Half-Blood Prince, opened the midnight show. The premiere hall was even more star-studded, and countless long-awaited fans rushed into the theater to witness this symbol of youth memory. Because for many viewers, Harry Potter and Hermione almost grew up with them. This feeling is very special, and it is also one of the factors that make the series so popular, a strong sense of participation. Of course, the premise is that the quality is online. Like this Half-Blood Prince, it uses the prelude to the final battle as a gimmick. While it is full of topics, the rhythm is handled very delicately and without dragging. So in terms of effect, many forecasting agencies, including theater dealers, feel that it is already stable, and there is no need to worry about poor results. Otherwise the opening screen would not be given to 4,325, the first opening number this summer, and the third in film history, second only to Batman, The Dark Knight and Pirates of the Caribbean, at World's End. And the share of the screening accounts for 53% of the market. AMC is located in a cinema in the bustling central area of New York. All 4 theaters are showing Half-Blood Prince, completely ignoring other new films in the same period, which perfectly proves the truth that all businessmen are dishonest. In the office, the manager is happily reporting the results to his superiors. Outside, the somewhat bored security captain saw the ticket seller finally finished his work and sat on the chair to rest and couldn't help asking, "Hey, how are the tickets selling?" "All sold out. The first row is full." "Very good." More than that, according to my experience, the next few days will definitely be the stage of Harry Potter. They are going to dominate the movie market. Every time the series is about to end, the fans are as crazy as if they were injected with chicken blood. Not to mention that the performance of Harry Potter has always been good, and the audience is all over the world. The security captain thought about it, and it made sense. Facts have proved that I'm Young does have a substantial bonus. When the 6th Harry Potter film was made, the actors in it could not bear the changes brought by their physical growth. The filming schedule was shortened, and even filmed in parallel to avoid embarrassment. Not to mention that some of the former fans have already started families and entered society. Just like a comment on Yahoo that received a lot of likes. When I first saw it, I was still a high school student, but now I'm already a father of a child. Warner Brothers spared no expense to create momentum and cooperated with 15 sponsors such as BMW and Coca-Cola, backed by an increasingly large and determined fan base. The film first broke the data of the champion of the midnight box office in the history of film history of about $22.2 million in the early morning of Wednesday, rewriting the record of $18.5 million set by Batman, The Dark Knight in one fell swoop. However, although both films are released by Warner, in order to guide the audience with better results, they broke themselves and used some less positive means, contacting theater chains to open midnight shows in theaters in the most prosperous areas of North America with an average of 4 to 5 halls, and even some theaters in some places set up a second midnight show at around 3 o'clock. With an extra shift. You know, the role of midnight shows is generally to test the market's acceptance, lay the foundation for the early fan reputation, and adjust the film's distribution strategy more flexibly according to actual feedback. So generally speaking, everyone tries to arrange 1 or 2 theaters in each state as much as possible, and sample the box office trend of the film to the greatest extent. However, for the sake of results, Half-Blood Prince rejected this approach and only focused on the prosperous areas of ticket-rich cities, and reached a pie deal with theater chains. The midnight show was scheduled into shifts, so naturally it sold more. Of course, regardless of whether the means were honorable or not, Warner's goal was at least achieved. By stepping on its own masterpiece The Dark Knight, this huge gimmick shocked the media all over the world for a while, so that the topic traffic on the first day of the release was greatly blessed, and there was constant discussion. Fans were even more sincerely happy that their favorite movie could achieve this level. From inside to outside the venue, from print media to the internet, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince became the most sensational one in the series. And under the stimulation of breaking the record of The Dark Knight, the first day of the release closed at $58.18 million, including the midnight show, easily ranking 4th in the first day box office in film history, inferior to Batman, The Dark Knight of $67.17 million, Transformers 2, Revenge of the Fallen of $62.02 million, and Spider-Man 3 of $59.84 million. But considering that Half-Blood Prince was released on Thursday, which is a weekday, even if the summer vacation liberated the student group, the core audience of the film, it is still very reluctant for some office workers, and there is room for improvement. So when the weekend came, Half-Blood Prince continued to sell well according to the sales of $26.83 million on Friday, $29.25 million on Saturday, and $23.4 million on Sunday, with a total of nearly $160 million in 5 days, and an average score of about $18,376 per theater, which successfully topped the list, which seemed a little incredible. The main reason was that the number of large-scale openings reached 4,325, and the single theater data was maintained at such a high level. In addition to setting a new record for the first week box office of the entire Harry Potter series, it was better than Caribbean 3, which also opened at a high level. The extra millions of box office was enough to make Warner very happy. Overseas, the Harry Potter series generally presents the box office characteristics of Europe and Asia combined, selling better than the United States. So when the overseas simultaneous premiere day earned $104 million and $237 million in 5 days, the new global box office record of nearly $400 million really lived up to nothing. Moreover, with the rapid expansion of the mainland film market, the market is getting higher and higher, and more cinemas are being built. On July 15th, Half-Blood Prince swept about 22 million RMB in the mainland market, and Germany, France, Russia, Japan and other places were all red. After the first week, such amazing explosive power undoubtedly made Warner's shareholders and senior executives very happy. At the time, when Harry Potter was about to end, the commercial value of the series was raised to a higher level, giving people a glimpse of the new dawn of the market height. The North American performance of the first 5 Harry Potter series was Sorcerer's Stone $317 million, Chamber of Secrets $262 million, Prisoner of Azkaban $249 million, Goblet of Fire $290 million, and Order of the Phoenix $292 million. Although the average box office was as high as $282 million, it was only the first Sorcerer's Stone, which won the annual box office champion at that time, that broke the $300 million mark in the past 9 years. Therefore, if Half-Blood Prince can overcome this obstacle again, it will undoubtedly have historical and substantial benefits. More importantly, as the global popularity of Half-Blood Prince spreads, it has temporarily ranked second in the history of film with a total of $4.48 billion so far. It is very likely to eventually defeat the 007 series with a total of $5 billion, ignoring inflation and the number of projects produced, and become the first in the history of film. In other words, the arrival of that day is completely expected, and once it is achieved, it will bring high topicality to the Harry Potter series, which has a lot of traffic and rich heritage, whether it is novels, movies or even brand peripherals. Of course, the only not so good thing is that when the next project is to be launched, Warner must spend a lot of money to start it. After all, the grasp of rhythm and roll injected by David Yates after taking over the film is also the reason why Half-Blood Prince is so popular, and Warner executives also said in an interview that they are in contact with David Yates, and it seems that the chips offered will not be small. Chapter 915. He is the right one. Please subscribe and vote. In the base studio of Weta Digital in New Zealand, Lyman, who had been learning 3D shooting technology for several days, had just returned to the hotel room from the set when he received a call from Lyman. "I never thought that Half-Blood Prince would put so much pressure on us." Lyman's first words were bitter. "What's wrong?" They relied on record-breaking marketing methods to divert many audiences from Thor with an unexpected box office trend. The impact was greater than the highest decline in the second week set previously. "The situation is not ideal. It's okay. We just need to do our best and try to maintain our market share." In comparison, Lyman had a certain psychological expectation of the rebound of Half-Blood Prince. There was no way. It was not until Order of the Phoenix that Warner found David Yates the most suitable director for the Harry Potter series, and then let him direct 4 films in a row, because in the eyes of Warner executives, this guy can not only coordinate the necessary differences between novels and film adaptations, but also fully demonstrate the visual charm of the magic world. The style is not too young, so that adult audiences will not feel bad about substitution. Although many core fans always emphasize that David Yates ruined Harry Potter, it is necessary to understand that a director from England has come under tremendous public pressure. No matter how he shoots, he cannot satisfy everyone. The overall effect and results are unexpectedly good, especially compared with the first 4 films in the series. Many people criticize from a very personal perspective, but they don't know that the Harry Potter series is a key and super project of Warner Brothers and Warner Group, and they have more things to consider. What is a key project? It means that you can only win, not lose, and you can only make money and not lose a penny. Doesn't Alfonso Cuarón have talent? He shot the best reputation for Prisoner of Azkaban, but because the results did not meet expectations, he lost his grip on the director's baton. The same is true. Mike Newell, a director with a bad reputation and unsatisfactory results, stuffed the entire 4th film into one movie and drastically asked the screenwriter to delete it if possible, and even left immediately after filming. So, if Warner Brothers first chose David Yates because he had filmed a series of political TV series before, and many of the foreshadowing or satires in the subsequent creations were Rowling's focus on political criticism, the direction was consistent, and the new director was relatively economical and obedient. From some interviews, it can be seen that he was very shy and basically had no temper, so Warner Brothers liked him very much because such a director was easy to control. But they still reused him afterwards, which showed too much. After all, people like Alfonso who have their own ideas are too uncontrollable. The third part was changed to a dark style. Many senior executives of Warner Brothers had doubts at the beginning. As a result, the box office was indeed the worst in the series. Although this one was the best one in terms of adaptation, performance, scene, and details, and it was also the favorite one of the Iron fans, it was difficult to hide the embarrassment in the performance. In the eyes of any capitalist, the first condition for working is to be obedient. What can a disobedient person do, even if you are talented? Especially in Warner Brothers, there are many factions and fierce competition within the company, and everyone is trying to catch the opponent's faults. In summary, it should not be difficult to understand why Warner has always reused Yates, because it is the right choice. Doesn't Warner know that Yates is not as talented as Alfonso? So many people in the film industry, including film critics, Rotten Tomatoes and other professional reviews, can certainly see it. But what Warner executives want is stability, balance, and maximizing fans and passers-by. They don't want any personality or excessive artistry, but they want to make money. Yates can do this, and he is the right director for the Harry Potter series. The results also prove everything. After hanging up the phone and waiting for the detailed box office data to be sent to the email, thought it'd decline a bit from the expected trend. The opponent is too strong, and Paramount is probably unhappy too, Lyman muttered to himself. According to the new weekly chart results, Thor, which started to decline after its first week, collided with Half-Blood Prince and plummeted 54%, earning $37.49 million in the second week. Transformers, which also wanted to capture the 16 to 25-year-old audience, fell 43%, earning $13.37 million US dollars. The cumulative record of $364 million in North America basically made the plan to pass the $400 million mark. Considering Paramount's usual persistent distribution method, Transformers 2 is likely to be no more than Spider-Man 1, and will not be offline. One of Paramount's tricks this year is Aliens, which was produced in April. It is still half dead in more than 100 theaters with a weekly income of less than $200,000, and has accumulated $197 million US dollars, just to surpass Happy Feet, and become a project with a respectable total performance among the same type of movies. Although there is a little benefit in terms of reputation, it is actually unnecessary. After such a long time of screening, there is no market. Of course, the studios are fighting hard, but the theater chain is very happy, because this week's North American film market has increased by 14.1% under the leadership of the Little Wizards, and the total of the top 12 is about $157 million US dollars, surpassing the data of the same period when Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was the banker. In 2005, becoming the second in film history. This driving effect is second only to the market data of Batman: The Dark Knight in 2007, which exceeded 200 million. However, that is a rare situation in film history, and is not within the predictable range. After all, to be honest, The Dark Knight is just like many people who did not expect Titanic to achieve such results. It simply raised the box office threshold and set a series of records in the market data of many blockbusters that are not much different. Not to mention, the reputation of Half-Blood Prince is not as good as that of The Dark Knight in terms of media and audience, and it is also not as good in terms of profit returns. These can be clearly compared with data and market feedback. The story about Professor Dumbledore leading Harry Potter on a journey to search for Horcruxes in order to fight Voldemort and the Death Eaters, with a little adolescent restlessness in the middle, has a media review of only 79 points, Yahoo gave it a B+, and Rotten Tomatoes scored 84 points. 170 votes in favor, 32 votes against, and there are many negative reviews on the internet. Moreover, the IP value of Batman can exceed $17 billion this year, ranking 14th. The Dark Knight is the biggest contributor, directly injecting a strong dose of medicine into the derivatives that have already recovered, not to mention that when Warner negotiates cooperation with other brands, even advertising placement has the upper hand. The two are not at the same level at all. Although the value of the entire IP of Harry Potter is much higher than that of Batman, when compared with the operation of a certain project, the gap is widened. The main reason is that Nolan's rebooted trilogy really saved the sluggish market of Batman, while the latter has never had a break. At most it did not meet expectations, and it has never lost money. Chapter 916, Joining Forces Again, Part 3, 2009. After the editing of I'm Legend was completed, Lyman returned to Los Angeles. Before that, some behind the scenes footage or posters that whetted the appetite of fans were released bit by bit, which also maintained a lot of attention. But just like the end of a series, as long as it is not a bad ending, will always arouse the desire of fans to watch the movie. The reputation of the zombie trilogy has been recognized by many audiences over time, and with the quality of the film above the level of New York Trip and I'm a Hero, so that the later Resident Evil with good results was suppressed by the zombie series launched by Firefly at this time. Of course, Firefly also occupies some investment shares of Resident Evil. Strictly speaking, the two companies are jointly expanding the market and cooperating for win-win results. As for the quality of I'm Legend, Lyman only wants to say that Zack Snyder is worthy of being a man of action rather than conception. Although he never writes scripts by himself and has poor literary skills, his grasp of color grading and personal understanding of the beauty of the film have always been in place. Just as 300 highlights violence, full of passion and bloodiness, Watchmen's use of light and shadow makes people walk into the spiritually lost ukiyo of the United States from the 1930s to the 1960s. Rainy cities, dirty streets, a heavy atmosphere of the times emanating from the cold and old city, a sense of confusion and nihilism from despair to pessimism rising above it. The black and white light and shadow that shrouds the entire film is exactly what those who love it like. When it comes to I'm Legend, the film becomes quiet, away from the noisy battles between zombies and humans in the first two films, and the yellowish color like dusk becomes the main color of this film. The uneasy, crazy, obsessed, leisurely even self-exiled empty image atmosphere completely continues a blurred feeling with the last human being as the core, which fits the theme very well. In the editing room, looking at the unshaven director who had been busy for 2 or 3 weeks and had hardly gone out, Lyman was not stingy with praise. The editing is great. This version will be the final version released in theaters. The director smiled easily, because here, he didn't have to worry about someone suddenly jumping out and picking out various errors and omissions, nor did he have to frantically compress the length of time for the huge amount of information. I'm Legend would not encounter such problems, and Firefly was not Warner. Soon, Lyman, who received the order, put down his work and ran here while contacting Lionsgate to set the release schedule for I'm Legend. John Feldmere and the executives of the distribution department came with a happy face. After greeting Lyman familiarly, everyone's focus was still on the project itself. Apart from anything else, New York Trip was more than 400 million, and I'm a Hero was 600 million. According to this trend, with its exquisite conception, qualified and excellent quality, and the blessing of the ending, is it possible for I'm Legend to break 7 and hope for 8? In short, Lionsgate, which urgently needs to take care of the global market and has enough profit space to feed upstream and downstream channel dealers, attaches great importance to contact with Firefly and is ready to invest the highest level of resources and energy to distribute the project. They also know that in such cooperation, although Lionsgate's distribution business is much better than in the past, it still relies heavily on Firefly Pictures for big works, and the status is not equal, because the most embarrassing thing is that their demand for Firefly is greater than Firefly's demand for Lionsgate, and they really can't stand up. Leaving Lionsgate, the Big Five will not refuse to let it go. It's just that the distribution commission is higher. How about October? Lyman looked at Lionsgate, mainly to remind them that, if I'm Legend is released in October, they can now move the projects originally prepared for release to the back. Once the two companies join forces, Firefly will need Lionsgate to guarantee the uniqueness of the schedule resources. No problem, New Moon is scheduled for September 11th, but the market is consumed very quickly, and I'm Legend just happens to be able to take over. Lionsgate's distribution executives obviously also understand the principle of focusing on time periods and making it easier to create momentum, and responded quickly. John Film smiled and nodded slightly. This arrangement is good. Both films are genre films that are more stylized than mainstream commercial films. The film market in September and October should not collide with other competitive blockbusters. If they perform well, they can definitely dominate the charts. Then it's decided. In a while, we will invite representatives from theater chains to come and take a look and strive for more screens and schedules for the opening. As for overseas, we hope to coordinate as much as possible and unify the pace of release in multiple regions. We will, since Twilight successfully proved that it can accurately identify the female audience group with an incomprehensible market performance and achieve great results. Theater chains in various regions overseas are not blind to it and have even participated in it. Of course, they have confidence in the sequel of the series. As long as we spend some time thinking about it, there is no worry that they will not agree. Most people will be active and making money. The top management of the studio simply set the direction, but the personnel of each department and the heads of the stations in each state have to drive around with their tasks. They either asked advertising companies to submit plans, or told agencies in advance to clear out actors' schedules for promotion, or competed for the best advertising spots in major communities. Even the network department of Blue Butterfly Pictures needed to slowly build momentum and pave the way to awaken netizens' impressions of the zombie trilogy, and even finalized and sent out soft articles about Will Smith to attract his fans to gradually focus on I'm Legend. Considering Will Smith's strong influence on the black community, the strategy to win over this part of the market also has a large proportion. After all, people in the industry understand why they were willing to spend so much money to hire him in the first place. Since they decided to take this route, with his own appeal and audience appeal, they must have the intention to break through the ceiling and expand the audience. As long as the return is worth the investment, it's fine. But to be honest, the title of the King of Stone is indeed useful. The role of Hancock in a spoof Superman can make the audience feel relatively positive about him. I'm Legend sets up a serious male lead like never, and the emotional release is relatively strong. The scene where the dog dies is not much less shocking than The Pursuit of Happiness, where Garner sleeps in the toilet with his son. Wouldn't it satisfy the fans more? After all, in this final chapter, that was well designed and laid out for 5 years, when Will Smith took over the script, he had great confidence in the possibility of the project's success. This person has a very good ability to select films. He bet on Michael Bay in many serious and literary works. He can be said to be sensitive. From this perspective, Tom and Cage are a little worse than him. In the past, his acting skills were not mature enough, and the situation of being ridiculed by film critics has changed a lot with his own progress, so everyone is looking forward to I'm Legend creating a legend. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 917. In 2009, the first to enter the 1 billion club. Please subscribe and vote. After the strong period of Thor's release, it began to be overshadowed by various new films. In the last 2 weeks of July, the film earned $53 million in North America, less than 1/3 of the total score in the first 2 weeks. Then in August, apart from taking time to visit the crew of Inception, to see the progress of the main creators such as Nolan and Heath Ledger, Lyman has been working with Cameron to learn the new 3D shooting system. Even though Thor was rushed to the 8th place in the weekly list by G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, which was called the last masterpiece of the summer of 2009, with the first weekend box office of $56.2 million, no one paid much attention to it. However, although the opening box office of G.I. Joe did not show a crushing trend of a hot commercial movie, $56.02 million can only rank 7th among the big movies in this summer season, and the box office is not as good as Paramount expected. But after landing on the big screen, the film quickly became the second best-selling toy adaptation in film history after the Transformers series. And the profit margin is still good. If you compare the sales of the movie versions of Barbie and American Girl, it turns out that male audiences are still willing to pay for their childhood dreams. More importantly, Paramount finally woke up from the superstitious cast of big directors and superstars, grasped the way of toy adaptation, quietly completed the change, and quickly became a studio in Hollywood that can compete for the first and second place in performance. In contrast, this year's Warner has frequently gone astray. Just now, when Transformers 2, Revenge of the Fallen was released in the 3rd week and the film had accumulated $249 million in North America, Paramount excitedly stated that they had sold more than $1 billion in the North American market, and their market share temporarily ranked first. They were also the first film and television company to break the threshold, led by the #1 contributor Star Trek, Transformers 2, vs. Aliens and the Spring Comet is Home for Dogs, and Looking for the Best Man, plus last year's The Curious Case of Benjamin Button at the beginning of this year. The average performance of the latter three was about 70 million. It took 203 days to break 1 billion, excluding distribution business, all our produced movies. And its speed of making money is enviable. Let's look at Warner Brothers, which used to be the top dog. It was not until Half-Blood Prince made a lot of money that it barely touched the 1 billion mark. The spring season sees just not that into you. Friday the 13th and 17 again. The three films made a total of about $232 million and the highly anticipated Anchored, Terminator 2018, and Watchmen were all weak. The three masterpieces combined were not as high as one of them. If it weren't for the surprise of Gran Turismo and the absolute trump card that turned the tide, it would probably be a failure. Even so, it took Warner 226 days to break through 1 billion, which was much slower than in previous years, and the profit return was not high. It was even more difficult to compete for the first market share in 2009. Looking back, in 1995, Disney broke the 1 billion North American box office for the first time with the strength of its animation business, which was a rare feat in the industry. Today, the 1 billion club has gradually become a habit, which is closely related to the strategic approach of high investment, high publicity, high box office, and serialization. It has become a production concept recognized by all film companies. In a blink of an eye, when this summer is about to end, Firefly finally relied on Thor, Captain America, Museum 2, the release of The Hangover at the end of August, and a low-cost thriller The Ugly Truth. In 243 days, it broke through the North American 1 billion threshold for the fourth time, and gained a lot of attention. Before that, Columbia also entered. Among them, after the filming of Thor, the total cumulative revenue in North America was $294 million, and the global revenue was $487 million, including the production cost of $150 million, and even other expenses and theater profits. Columbia can earn $45.9 million from the box office share, and the offline profit is expected to be $34.3 million. The total revenue of the project operation is about $80.2 million. The investor Marvel can earn $52.65 million from the box office, and the offline profit is expected to be $188 million. $247 million from image derivatives, more than $46 million from brand peripherals, and $8.2 million from comics business. The project revenue is about $541.85 million, which is more than $60 million higher than Captain America. The profit level is not small. One day in early September, after the crew of Avatar finished shooting a day's scenes, Lyman returned to the hotel and received several emails from Ryan. In the past 2 months, he has focused on the development of movies and channels, and has somewhat neglected the development of the TV series department. As a result, after looking at the revenue of the first 3 quarters today, he noticed that the achievements have also been quite a lot. First of all, the 3 carriages headed by Breaking Bad, Stranger Things and Hell's Kitchen have become more and more popular. Traffic has skyrocketed, and advertising business has been fruitful, bringing the company a net profit of $260 million. However, a closer look shows that under this growth, other series are becoming more and more embarrassing. In particular, Prison Break and The Walking Dead are facing a serious decline in revenue and expenditure. Lyman opened IMDb and saw that the latter was better, but it was criticized for its lack of novelty in the plot, and the audience could still watch it. After all, the ratings still need to be filmed. The former simply did not have many positive reviews. Ryan directly suggested not to start it and let it end. In other words, after the 6th season of Prison Break was filmed and broadcast, there was really no profit margin, and the audience was tired of it and scolded it. After browsing and agreeing to cut Prison Break and reduce the resource investment in The Walking Dead, Lyman couldn't help but sigh, and then he felt a sense of relief at the arrival of a new era. The old things are over, and the current Firefly has more pillars. The next day, Lyman continued to be an invisible man on the set, silently absorbing the experience of 3D shooting without hindering Cameron's directing methods. After all, although this technology costs money to use, the effect is really good. No matter how routine things are, the viewing experience presented on the screen can give the audience a completely different level. Just as he was learning happily, Lyman received another call from Kevin Feige. This guy was not for the filming of Iron Man 2, not for the sales of derivatives, nor for other things involving Marvel's core interests, but for why Warner would jump out to collapse porcelain, and asked Lyman how to respond, or simply ignore it. When he first heard this, Lemon was a little confused. After all, he was not in the United States and did not understand the direction of newspaper news. It was not until he asked the whole story of the so-called touching porcelain incident that he found it a little funny. In addition to being funny, this scene had to be played with Warner because it was a very good hype topic and Marvel did not have to pay anything. At most it would cost a little money to buy the page. Chapter 918 Preheating Green Lantern. Please subscribe and vote. These days, fans who like DC are really happy. Originally, Captain America and Thor were released one after another some time ago, which made Marvel fans happy, but DC fans were more angry at Warner Brothers. What's more important is that after the release of other films, they still kept giving fans something to think about. They said that there were plans for Captain America sequels and Thor sequels, and even the sequel of Iron Man had news releases from the set, but DC's movement was pitifully small. Watchmen also made a very confusing impression on the market, and there was no confidence to shout everywhere and share that joy. Maybe hard work pays off. DC fans called for it every day on forums, YouTube, and Facebook, and finally, Green Lantern was born. As soon as the news was released, it quickly aroused discussion about blockbusters. Of course, the above idea is just wishful thinking of fans. As a mature studio, Warner Brothers must be looking to compete for the growing superhero market and will only approve the project of Green Lantern after it is deemed feasible after research and review. In fact, Warner Brothers was still preparing in secret at the beginning. It was not until the director and the leading actor found the right candidates that they began to actively release relevant information for the convenience of future publicity and promotion and to warm up the situation. Is it just publicity? In fact, it is nothing. In the era of good wine needs no bush, the proportion and role of publicity and promotion in the film and television industry are gradually increasing. It's just that Warner Brothers spent a small part of its resources to promote director Martin Campbell and his masterpiece The Mask of Zorro, which did not have a good effect. This guy is also a New Zealand director. Since Weta Digital received government support, New Zealand has produced many special effects directors, and their talents are not low, which is also amazing. Warner Brothers felt unhappy. No matter how much the small number of fans who have been paying attention to DC's dynamics celebrated, it is impossible to make a profit from the first-line masterpieces that need actual benefits. So, after a few days, they changed direction and launched a marketing campaign next to their old rival Marvel. Although I don't want to admit it, if we only compete in project production, Marvel has indeed suppressed DC in the North American film market, and Marvel's production volume is stable and effective, and the discussion can be maintained for a long time. Just like that, Ryan Reynolds, the actor who plays Green Lantern, who is also a tool and a publicity face, stood up. He appeared in a talk show, had a very effective conversation with the host, and commented on the performances of both Marvel and DC, which instantly ignited the fans of both parties who already disliked each other. The reason for this is that Ryan Reynolds himself is currently the only actor who has starred in both Marvel and DC works, Blade and Wolverine, respectively, plus this Green Lantern, which is naturally topical. In other words, his behavior of stepping on Marvel and praising DC, coupled with Warner's original intention to stir up trouble, the media followed up, and the fire started. What Marvel executives did not expect was that DC's touch porcelain effect was very good. This discussion spread from print media to the internet, and the momentum was so rapid and controversial. The center point of the topic is naturally DC versus Marvel, and the derivative discussion is who is better in shaping and adapting the characters. There is no doubt that this purposeful hype is somewhat disadvantageous to Marvel. As mentioned before, Warner's attitude towards DC is that it will suddenly produce a masterpiece, and Marvel is definitely more like an assembly line commercial product in comparison. Although it can please the audience, the threshold is very low, and the quantity is large, but when it comes to the upper limit, it is still not good enough. Just like now, I think Marvel's movies are very good. Superheroes are products of fantasy, and cannot be found in reality. They are entertaining and enjoyable to watch. The special effects are also good, and they are not exaggerated. Can't you demand more? There are so many crappy movies, because there are so many crappy audiences. Some DC works deserve criticism, but Marvel deserves more criticism. They all follow the same routine. Come on, are we all going to learn from Watchmen and cut scenes madly for the sake of being serious? Is this not following the routine? It's really funny. I say this so that non-fans of the original book can understand it. Apart from anything else, Marvel is very friendly to passers-by. You don't need to figure out who is who before watching. In Iron Man, the male protagonist was caught and almost died, but later he became more responsible and defeated the villain. In the Hulk, the male protagonist was wanted and fled, but later he had the means to initially control the Hulk's will and defeated the villain. In Captain America, the male protagonist was thin, but was noticed by the Doctor for joining the army, and later he took the super soldier serum and defeated the villain, including Spider-Man, X-Men, and Wolverine. Marvel's adaptations always like to let the characters go through some hardships first, and then grow up quickly, and the narrative structure is all 3-part. Can there be more innovation? There are many people with double standards in this world. If you really want to find shortcomings, no movie can be spared. As the helmsman of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige naturally pays attention to the reactions of the public. After learning about the offensive emotions that were accidentally provoked through various channels, in addition to calling Lyman to let him know, he even has the heart to research the market. After all, Kevin Feige doesn't care much about those so-called critics. In his opinion, those who like to scold are not the basic audience of Marvel, so what's the harm of letting them comment 1 or 2 sentences? There is a saying in the marketing industry that, even if there are negative pushes, it is still a valuable performance, which is better than a stagnant pool of water that no one pays attention to. For celebrities, even if they are called black fans, they are still fans, which is better than people who are not topical at all. So, taking advantage of the fact that the wind was not one-sided, and Marvel was even more aggressive in trying to win over passers-by, Man Media also specially arranged several media outlets with good relations to cooperate in hype. After notifying the boss and getting a positive response that day, pretending to have accidentally intercepted the news, Marvel and DC are not fighting to the death, and the market can accommodate both. Since Warner wants to warm up and build momentum for its own works, it is very confident. Why should Marvel be afraid of being compared? They are all profitable. Okay. Mr. Feige, do you have anything to say? The reporter quickly recounted the core of the dispute. Kevin frowned, like a vice president, and then shouted righteously in front of the camera. Our production concept is to make more people like Marvel's movies. What is the premise of liking it? Being able to understand it and willing to watch it. In fact, we have done a good job in this regard, and our fans have been growing. And they seem to be just strolling around, not investing any energy at all, referring to the low production volume of DC films, which are always repeated. Haha. The interview scene suddenly became happy. Yes, no matter how much you blow, you should take more shots. Why are you so cautious and afraid to place a bet? You still lose money. Chapter 919 New Moon subscriptions. Votes required. If you are a staunch DC fan, then you must mention The Dark Knight and Watchmen. If you are a Marvel fan, then you must pay attention to the Easter egg connection between the films. But if you are just a person who likes to watch movies, then the superhero theme is just a choice, and there is not much surprise. In fact, only those who are inexplicably superior to others, as if they must be recognized as a good movie, to watch a good movie, will care about the capitalists' business of making money. After all, watching movies is a very subjective thing, just like all products of spiritual enjoyment. As long as you care about personal satisfaction, it's fine. It's just that some things are criticized more than praised, which is a problem. Maybe the investors will lose their pants. Of course, there are many movies in the history of movies that were highly praised, but the mainstream audience didn't buy it and still lost money. Therefore, judging only by performance is not a good criterion, but in the impetuous era, where everything is about money, there is nothing wrong with such a reference. If it can be a hit, is there at least a reason for it to be a hit? As a result, the heat raised by the two parties did not last long and gradually dissipated. Netizens are always not focused enough. Final Destination 4 is the movie that has harvested the most box office in the market at this time. This series, which has always been low investment and high output, has now reached a high ceiling after the preparation of the first 3 films. After successfully topping the list with a good performance of about $28.34 million in about 3,000 theaters in the first weekend, August 28 to 1930, it directly created an increase of nearly twice the average premiere value of $15 million. In the first 3 films of the series, of course, such results are inseparable from the continuous expansion of the fan base, but following the Eastern life-threatening setting and designing the ingenious process of death carefully and sophisticatedly is undoubtedly the key. It can be said that Final Destination is an alternative horror work focusing on death techniques under the popularity of American plasma films. What is more rare is that it allows the audience to quickly adapt to this style, immerse themselves in it, and enjoy the exciting atmosphere. Although there have been criticisms and the media reputation of the film is not very good, the results still prove the value of the series' profitability. Even in the second week, when the box office results for the Labor Day weekend, September 4th to 6th, which kicked off the cold autumn season at the North American box office, were released, last week's champion Final Destination 4 retained the top spot with an extremely tenacious performance of about $12.44 million. Suppressing Sandra Bullock's new film All About Steve's $11.2 million. So far, the box office of the top 12 on the list is about $79.37 million, down 27.7% from last week, and not breaking the 100 million mark. Of course, Final Destination 4 also saw the highest drop of 54.6% in the second weekend of the series during the same period, which simply shows that it is not too strong, but the opponent is too weak. A careful analysis also shows that the slightly higher ticket prices than usual for the 3D version of the film also helped a lot, but this is undoubtedly the result that Warner New Line expected. However, such actual combat effect also made Weinstein, the producer of Halloween 2, which was defeated by Final Destination 4 last week, eager to announce the establishment of the third episode. At the same time, he learned from Final Destination 4, which defeated his opponent, and clearly announced that it would be filmed in 3D version, which perfectly explained that they wanted to take advantage of others, wherever they took advantage. After all, the audience of Halloween 2 overlaps with that of Final Destination, and its tragic drop of 65.7% also well reflects the audience's dissatisfaction with the quality of Halloween 2. On the other hand, it also shows the sadness that the similar market was greatly eroded by Final Destination 4. And after the release of this film, Weinstein's life was not easy. The fate of this studio has been going downhill since the day it parted ways with its old employer Disney. Now there is news that Weinstein is about to close the Hong Kong branch, and there is also bad news that the British branch is preparing to lay off only 5 people. In other words, Weinstein lacked the care of capital, liked to take shortcuts, and the production department was not enough to be the pillar of the company, so his fate was doomed. It's my birthday, can I ask for anything? Kiss me. You are the only reason I'm alive. This is me. How can you be so beautiful? Your head was squeezed by the door. I'm so sorry. Bella, are you apologizing for bleeding? Ha 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 ha. In the fall season, a theater in the central area of Los Angeles was showing the Twilight Saga, New Moon. After the influence of the first part, the second part did not need to invest too much in publicity costs, and it easily attracted a large number of female audiences to come to this dream date with Bella, Edward and other supporting roles. At the end of the film, the audience got up comfortably, and the conversation in their mouths was indeed an invitation to watch it again tomorrow. It has to be said that the Twilight series is one of the movies with the most repeat customers, and it seems that it will do whatever it wants in the female market. After all, after director Chris Weitz took over New Moon, the control of rhythm became more mature, and the story had more room to play than Twilight, so those who liked it very much, and the audience's reputation was even higher than the first one. Jacob is so nice, with a great body, gentle and considerate, clever and deft. After the transformation, he can give people a sense of warmth and heaviness. Imagine walking in the forest with him, and when you can't walk anymore, let him turn into a wolf and ride on him. How majestic it is. The werewolf is so handsome and cute, and the muscles make me feel amorous, yeah. After get off work in the afternoon, I actually booked a ticket until 10 PM and quickly called on my girlfriends to rush over. At that moment, I was surprised until I looked at the 200-meter team in the Bay Area of California. It seemed that the oldest people were the 3 people traveling with me. It was really embarrassing. If you don't know, you would think that 3 alternatives appeared when young boys and girls were organizing a movie. But who cares? After that, before the main film was shown, a guy from a club behind me shouted, "Twilight is gay." The whole audience burst into laughter, making the whole viewing atmosphere pleasant. Especially when Jacob was shirtless and showing off his body. The audience screamed as loudly as Edward. The muscle-tight jeans shorts showing his light blue underwear made people around him breathe in and out. Haha, I and my companions almost died of laughter, just like seeing our past selves unable to resist such temptation. In general, this film completely continues the light comedy love feeling of the first film, and the story is even better. As for those criticisms, just ignore them. Believe me, sisters, you will love it. Chapter 920. Many fanatical fans, breaking records. Please subscribe and vote. It rained a little last night, and Lemon returned to Los Angeles in the damp and cold air. He was in a good mood along the way. Although he had irregular working hours, and was not bound by the rules and regulations set by the administrative office, that is, Joseph, he was still very hard working. When he got home, Lemon took a few newspapers handed over by the housekeeper, and soon found that no matter which one he read, he could see reports about the hot release of New Moon. It was the off-season, and even a niche theme like Death Note 4 could win consecutive championships, not to mention the charm of popular female movies like the Twilight series, which made it difficult for the audience to resist. The publicity strategy that Lyman had formulated long ago, all-weather, all-round all-time information bombardment, combined with the outstanding fan reputation of the film, the effect of pushing and releasing it was simply to occupy the people's sight of life. No one can stop it. Lemon put down the newspaper and sighed. There is no doubt about how much money New Moon makes, and how much profit margin it has. Whether it is the theater chain or Lionsgate, they all recognize that the sequel can surpass the performance of the first one, and the market feedback is also moving in this direction. In the evening, Ryan, with a smile on his face, reported the news that also proved the bright financial prospects of New Moon. How was the road show? Without security, we couldn't even get off the stage. Those little girls were so crazy, their screams are all in my head now. Haha, this proves that our movie has captured a considerable number of fans. The foundation is good, and there is still room for improvement in the market potential. By the way, tomorrow Monday, Lionsgate wants to hold an internal distribution reception and invite several overseas channel dealers to participate. Do you want to go? No, Liam can go, if he is convenient. I'm going to talk to Chris Weitz tomorrow. If the early preparation process of the project depends on the progress of the production department management such as Garsha and Black, then once the film starts, it depends on the director's directing ability. What's more, in the shooting system of Firefly, the producers only play the role of supervision and collaboration, and they rarely intervene in the actual implementation and performance. Moreover, Lemon thinks Chris Weitz is very suitable for the Twilight series. His experience, humorous light comedy style, and understanding of special effects shots can all be added points. In other words, Lemon wanted to tie Chris Weitz down, just like Paramount signed multiple film contracts with Michael Bay, so that he could not be distracted from other projects, and could focus more on the Transformers series. How is it? You must be a little tired from your recent schedule. The next day, in the office of the Firefly building, Lemon looked at Chris Weitz with a warm face. In fact, Lemon has always been very polite to directors. After all, he himself is also from this industry, and does not have the inexplicable sense of superiority under the producer-centered system. It's okay. The main hard work during the promotion period is the lead actor. Chris Weitz still didn't say much, but it can be seen that he was in a good mood and full of energy. Apart from anything else, the success of New Moon relieved a lot of pressure on him. No director wants to be devastated by the failure of the Golden Compass, especially in the fiercely competitive Hollywood. Lyman also knew this situation, so he came to contact the relationship immediately. It's like this. After greeting him, Lyman looked at him with a smile. I want you to continue to be the director of the Twilight series, responsible for the filming of the third and fourth parts. Are you willing, sir? Give me some time to think about it. Chris answered a little unsuccinctly and paused for a while in the middle. His thoughts were indeed a little fluctuating. It's okay. Although it's a bit sudden, I'm inviting you sincerely. If you have any concerns, you can talk about it. So let me first talk about our conditions. You can see that after the release of New Moon, it has attracted a large number of fans. It is very popular with female audiences. After all, there are too few movies that focus on the performance of the heroine. You have made a great contribution to this. So, what I mean is that I want to sign a 2-part contract with you for $25 million, and I will not interfere with your filming and creation unless there are unexpected circumstances. Suddenly, the balance of Chris's choice began to tilt towards Lyman's side. There is no other reason $25 million for 2 movies. In addition, Firefly has always been generous in giving out part of the box office profits as rewards to the main creators and producers. It is very likely that $30 million will be earned after shooting 2 movies, an average of $15 million per movie. The chips are very tempting. Of course, the strength shown by Chris Weitz is also worthy of Lyman's investment. As long as the Twilight series maintains a certain performance, Firefly, which holds the copyright, can get more. Moreover, Man Media is constantly developing, and the demand for director talents will only increase. Even though there are already 4 first-tier directors, including Lyman, there is also a large demand for directors at other levels. Happy cooperation. In the end, Chris still couldn't refuse. Last weekend, September 11th to 13th, New Moon lived up to expectations and maintained its screening advantage to the end. It was screened in 4,020 theaters and earned $140.7 million in 3 days, including midnight shows, breaking the $108 million opening record set by Transformers 2 in the summer season, becoming the highest grossing movie in the first weekend of 2009. The first weekend box office of $140 million ranked 3rd in North American film history, second only to The Dark Knight and Spider-Man 3. At the same time, Twilight 2 also successfully became the highest grossing movie in the first weekend of September in North American film history, with a first day box office revenue of $72.7 million, which is also the highest box office on the first day in North American film history. Of course, Twilight 2 broke more box office records. Let's put it this way, it was able to start with a low-cost attitude and finally achieved such results without big stars and luxurious publicity, and the second part increased by 200% compared with the first part. Twilight opened the weekend of $69.63 million, which is unique in the entire North American film history. As soon as the data was disclosed, the publicity teams of Blue Butterfly and Lionsgate did not miss such good material, which instantly made the fans who like the work full of pride. Twilight 2 has always been criticized by male film critics. Now, no matter how it is evaluated, or it can be said that this is a super high box office built by fans, it also reveals a sour taste. After swallowing a lemon, at least the confidence to criticize is much weaker. If any bad movie can break various records and even be engraved in the history of North American movies, what else can be said? After all, even Warner and the rejuvenated Paramount are learning from the Twilight series and no longer ignore the growing number of female consumers. Therefore, the reaction of the studios is not so excited. Every year, unimaginable blockbusters are born, and who doesn't have some experience? Even the producer Timur Bekmambetov, who was stepped on by the Twilight 2, New Moon and squeezed too much screening share of the animated film Ex Machina produced by Focus Features, invested $27 million, and harvested an average yield of about $6,530 per acre and a total harvest of about $10.86 million. In the first week of box office in 1,661 cinemas, publicly praised the pioneering nature of the Twilight 2. This is visible to everyone. It crushed other movies in the same period and increased the overall film market by 27%. Without it, it would be impossible to attract so many audiences to support it. This is its credit. Chapter 921, Layout Game, Part 3. As Timur Bekmambetov said, the cinema chain operators are very grateful for the screening of the Twilight Saga, New Moon. In fact, September has always been a battle between small fish and shrimps. It is a good time for the film market to exceed 100 million yuan. Under normal circumstances, the attendance rate is generally less than 40%, and the revenue is barely equal to the expenditure. Let's put it this way, if there is no new moon this year, on the weekend of September 13th, relying only on the market appeal of other films at the level of a car accident, then everyone doesn't have to think about making any money. Last week's champion Death Row 4 fell again by 54% this week, earning only 5.5 million, ranking 5th, and perhaps its only contribution is to vacate the market share. Summit Entertainment's new film Horror Fraternity earned 5.27 million in 2,665 theaters in its first week. And the super many negative reviews also justified the poor performance of this film. The rest of Uncle 7, All About Steve, and Snowblind are also quite satisfactory, and all aspects are very unremarkable. In other words, in today's North American film market, only the Twilight Saga 2, New Moon produced by Firefly can bring higher returns. It has raised the total cumulative top 12 market to 183 million by itself, connecting the sluggish weekend market. What's more impressive is that the overseas box office of the Twilight Saga 2 is also 118 million. With the 140 million revenue in North America, the global box office in the first week totaled 258 million, instantly surpassing 90% of the films on the market. After entering the second week, even if the Twilight Saga 2, New Moon fell sharply by 63%, only earning 43.66 million, excluding the 22 million box office of The Midnight Show, its volume is still not comparable to other films, and it easily continues to be the champion of the weekly chart. In the conference room, a meeting on business expansion and development is in progress. Next, without delaying the investment of the production and distribution departments, we need to spend energy on developing the animation and game fields. According to the survey, whether it is Spider-Man or DC, their game revenue accounts for more than 10% of the brand's peripherals, and the revenue amount still has room to increase. According to the plan, we will contact some manufacturers that can be obtained as soon as possible and quickly build a framework. We can't just sit there and watch other IPs make profits. Lemon sat in the first seat, with Kevin Feige, Joseph, and Marvel Entertainment's senior management sitting on his left and right. Under the proposal, because the various productions were filmed smoothly and in a timely manner, the brand value continued to grow, and everyone had a strong enterprising spirit in their hearts. Anyway, a luxurious ship that can continuously produce cash is about to ride the wind and waves to go deep into other media and entertainment fields. A very healthy capital chain is the most stable background. After a few days, animation is easy to say. With the cooperation experience of Illumination Entertainment, Man Media once again acquired two small studios in the industry and then recruited painters to form Marvel Animation, a sub-brand of Marvel Pictures. As the name suggests, the main focus of this studio is to produce animations of Marvel characters and continue to cultivate audiences. However, this part only plays a supplementary role to the existing layout, and the production concept is to control the budget and mainly invest in 3D short animation. One day, Johnson came to the second floor balcony of the Last Manor. "What's going on? Any news? CAA's information channels are still reliable, but the game studio you mentioned seems to have been spotted by someone. It's okay, I don't necessarily need a controlling stake. The game business is really beyond our capabilities, and few people in the company understand programming. That's easy." Johnson, dressed in a suit, opened his briefcase and took out detailed information. Riot Games was founded in 2006 by Brandon Baker and Mark Merrill. At the E3 exhibition in 2008, Riot successfully raised $8 million through the demonstration of its internal beta game League of Legends, and introduced Tencent and two small investment banks, Benchmark Capital and First Capital as investors. Among them, Tencent holds 22% of the shares and has obtained the agency rights of League of Legends in mainland China. Oh, is there any possibility of a transaction between the two investment banks? I have investigated. The two companies only invested in the first round and did not interfere in the management and research and development of Riot. As long as we raise the price a little bit, they will definitely let go. There are such investment banks everywhere on Wall Street. They can't bring more capital to Riot's development. Both parties can see it clearly. Just like the trajectory of later generations, Tencent did not join the bandwagon after the success of League of Legends. As early as the internal testing stage, Riot Games had run out of money to continue, and then met Penguin, a big sponsor, who gave money to technical talents. From this point of view, Tencent is not so confident, but still bet on it. They are now actively expanding their game business. For them, as long as they can achieve results, they will immediately increase investment. Tencent's size is enough to support them to bet everywhere. Johnson reminded him tactfully. In his opinion, a company like Man Media, which mainly focuses on movies, cannot compete with a giant that started with real-time communications and is already rooted in the internet industry, even if its roots are on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. Lemon wanted to laugh. He didn't intend to kick Penguin out. Or rather, the success of this game is inseparable from Penguin's strong promotion ability. I know my limits. You should contact the two investment banks first and take their investment shares at a suitable price. Lemon didn't explain much and gave a direct order. He knows very well that, although games also belong to the entertainment field, the gamma play threshold of the film, TV series, animation and other industries requires more professional talents. Moreover, many internet products that have influenced the world cannot even grow up simply by relying on technology. Being able to seize the opportunity in advance to become an angel investor and to acquire other small studios with the experience of professional teams like Riot in developing games can also help Marvel characters be transplanted to the handheld field. To be honest, he just wants to make a difference in the handheld field, like Spider-Man's old club Sony, but not to become a game overlord. Besides, the two FPS games CF and CS, one is represented by Tencent and has become a dream of 300 million gun battles, and the other is a hit in Europe and the United States, but it has never taken off in the mainland. It can also make people clearly feel who is the real person in charge of the Chinese market. As for what benefits can be obtained from investing in League of Legends besides cash, let's put it this way. It can bring audience traffic to Marvel. The age group of players of this game is the core audience that Marvel wants to win over. It can also more quickly increase Marvel's influence among Asian youth groups. Although Marvel has paid special attention to the Asian market after Lemon took over, and the level of investment is not low, the promotion level can be increased. Why miss this opportunity to kill two birds with one stone? Chapter 922 Fist. Subscribe, vote. Lionsgate is quite happy these days, and the days of making money are still very motivated. Because of the beautiful box office data of New Moon, their distribution team's promotion work in various overseas regions has been extremely smooth. When they contact those theater chains, distributors and even advertisers, the attitude of the other party is also very enthusiastic, and basically they can reach cooperation, and the accumulation of channel distribution network is also constantly deepening. In less than half a month, the revenue of film derivatives and film box office output has reached $277 million, which is almost $19.78 million US dollars per day. Of course, the account cannot be summarized so simply. After all, as time goes by, the value of the film is in a straight line decline. By the end of September, it is difficult to exceed 2.4 million per day. However, even so, many stacker holders are very satisfied. After all, the Twilight series is a typical fan market, and the number of people who like it gradually decreases, and it usually declines quickly. On the other side, Johnson also brought back good news soon. Just as he said, the investment bank bet on a game in the internal testing stage, just to make a quick profit and leave after the game is launched. Now someone is willing to buy their 16.5% shares for $18.4 million, with a return rate of nearly 300%. They don't have to hold the money and wait for Riot Studio to really grow fruits. What's there to be reluctant about? Both companies got off the bus very happily. So, Lemon's new company Red Dragonfly Games, which was registered not long ago by himself, successfully intervened in the League of Legends developed by Riot, and then registered a game studio under Marvel Entertainment under the Marvel brand, preparing to get close to Riot, acquire other small game studios, to develop image adaptation games, and even outsource them to Riot, which will become bigger in the future. After all, Riot Studio has many talents and a fertile soil for cultivation. Then, after the transaction was completed, Riot quickly got in touch with Johnson and expressed his desire to meet with the boss of Red Dragonfly, probably wanting to formally test the waters. In response, Lemon also quickly agreed. He also wanted to be the second largest shareholder and hold the agency rights in Europe. At that time, Riot was just a group of people full of entrepreneurial enthusiasm. They were very poor and had no strength to expand League of Legends. They themselves knew that, if they could reach a consensus, they would accept nothing. When they were acquired by the company in the future, they only asked not to interfere with the internal operations, which showed their character. Soon, on the afternoon of September 27th, when Crescent Moon won 3 consecutive championships, and was finally overwhelmed by Sony's self-made CG animation pie in the sky, Lemon and Brandon sat face to face for the first time under Johnson's matchmaking. "Oh, you are director last. I like your play very much. Can you sign it for me?" If I go back and tell them, they will definitely not believe who I met today. Brandon is a typical technical man. From leaving Blizzard to starting a business, he dealt with people in the circle or some investment banks. He really had never met any celebrities, let alone sitting with a world-renowned director. After being surprised, he could not hide his excitement. "Hello." He got a pen and a postcard from the cafe supervisor and signed his name. After the other party calmed down, they talked about business. Of course, Brandon had never thought that the boss behind Red Dragonfly was a director before coming, and he was not used to talking about investment with a big director. However, they were short of money. Although Penguin brought money and manpower, it was not generous. "Great director, just call me Lemon. You are a professional in this field." Lemon, please allow me to introduce our product first. It is a MOBA competitive online game. Compared with other similar games on the market, it is easier to get started. Well, I have some understanding of it. Lemon thought for a while and said, "I also play games, so I thought about entering this industry. Although I don't understand technology, I can provide funds and promotion channels. We have cooperated with many advertising companies. If we wait until the game is publicly tested, I can contact some media, radio stations, or add some element to the movie. These are no problem." "Thank you so much." Lemon's straightforwardness immediately made Brandon a little happy. "By the way, are you free recently? I hope you can visit us. We welcome your arrival. Of course, I have great expectations for your game. Do it as soon as you say it. The influence of the hype of League of Legends is also not limited to games. It's better to get a seat earlier." Lemon doesn't want to wait a day later. "Ryan, come with me later." After leaving the coffee shop, Lemon first called Ryan to ask him to come over, and then took him and Brandon to the Riot studio. How should I put it? The office environment of Riot in its early stages was not good, but these people were still very enthusiastic about work. "Is this game fun?" Ryan, who hurried over, looked at the poor picture quality during the internal test phase and expressed doubts. Most people are visual animals. If they want to fall in love with a game, they must at least be able to accept the style of the game. However, at this stage, the focus of Riot's capital investment is definitely not optimization and the original painting design of heroes. They have very few artistic talents. So when Lemon and Ryan carefully watched the demonstration effect of League of Legends, they also made some suggestions from their own perspective. What kind of computer configuration does it support to run smoothly? Mainstream models in the market, and those with average configuration can play it. The engineer answered confidently. Will it freeze or suddenly crash the game? Well, there may still be some small problems in this regard, but it doesn't happen often. Trindamere added on the side. I see you're still short of staff. Why don't you consider hiring more? The original models of these characters are yet to be followed up. We don't have much money in our account. Brandon waved his hand. In fact, our employees are doing several jobs at the same time. Oh. Lemon nodded thoughtfully. That means you don't have any promotion at all now. Have you set up a marketing department? Not yet. Lemon kindly reminded. How can you sell products without advertising? The game is about to enter the public beta stage, and the promotion work can already begin. Although the game is in its circle, in order to attract attention and make people want to download, advertising is essential. We can't do it at all. An honest man replied. Don't worry, I'm here. Lemon patted the honest man on the shoulder. How about I invest another sum? Let me think. How about 100 million? Riot's development team suddenly breathed quickly. Chapter 923, Concept of the Competition System. Please subscribe and vote. Too generous, too generous, too good. This is what the Riot development team is thinking at this time, and some people are even shouting and venting their emotions. No one wants to do two things at once, in order to save the necessary development expenses, which will delay the progress of the game's launch. However, the people in Riot also know that this money is not easy to get. No matter how you look at it, the owner of a studio with good performance will not sell kindness for no reason. Brandon Baker and Mark Merrill looked at each other, and the latter nodded slightly and said, Mr. Last, can you come to my office to talk? The employees of Riot also understood that whether their welfare benefits can be improved depends on the result of the negotiations between the two parties. They looked at the figures of several people disappearing behind the door. But in fact, things are not that complicated. The management of Riot is not so obsessed with the shares in their hands. They just hope that the investors will not interfere with their creation. In the original time and space, that is, on February 18th, 2011, the US service had been online for more than a year, and the Chinese service was still being localized. But when it was about to go online, Penguin took out 1.525 billion yuan in cash, about 231 million US dollars, and 155 million put options on existing equity, and increased its holdings of Riot by 8.2095 million shares, reaching 92.78%. It was only a little more than 22% before. But at that time, the results of the US public beta and the number of real-time online users allowed Penguin to see the actual operating space of this game, so it spent this money to tie up the future of Riot. Now, Riot is not that valuable, and after the transaction is completed, the founder and management team only require full responsibility, independent operation, and let Penguin grant 2.009 million shares to the employees as an incentive. In other words, Riot welcomes the gold owner to join and live a good life. Just like at this moment, Mark was happy, but he only considered that his shares were not highly valued, and he didn't know whether League of Legends could make a name for itself in the increasingly fierce game market. You know, although Riot's development team has experience in game development, they don't have independent successful practical experience. Lemon is different. After several years of polishing, his company's cash reserves are very high and can withstand the toss. Comparing the two sides, Riot has no confidence to refuse the temptation. They don't even know what kind of market energy League of Legends can burst out, so they have no bargaining chips to raise the price. We only have 60.4% of the shares left, which doesn't cost 100 million. Huh. It doesn't matter. I plan to set up a company to contract this game event, and the remaining funds will be transferred here. When the time comes, it will be used to rent venues and arrange players. Has this been thought so far? But Mark didn't want to refuse such good intentions. Anyway, it would be good if it could have a positive effect on the promotion of the game. So, how much do you plan to invest? Brandon on the side was still immersed in the joy of meeting Lemon, a big money sponsor with a lot of money, and now he could get a substantial return. Seeing that he was just secretly happy and didn't say anything, Mark couldn't help but ask, I think 49.28 million is a more appropriate price. Yes. Brandon quickly agreed. It's very playable, and the threshold for getting started is also low. It can attract players who like MOBA games to the greatest extent. Lemon nodded very straightforwardly and didn't want to bargain at all. It was only valued at 77 million, and the two investment banks valued it at 110 million. They all traded it. Can we only say that entrepreneurs are always more realistic than hyenas? If you miss this opportunity, you may not have it anymore. It's less than 50 million, so you invest it. The remaining money will be used to establish a Red Dragonfly Sports with Riot 55 shares, which is similar to the Tencent Esports that Penguin cooperated with Riot, focusing on events and broadcasting, expanding the influence of games, and forming a brand. However, my team also needs some protection. I have also considered this aspect. I will give these outstanding employees 5% of the options. Having said that, Brandon and Mark had nothing to hesitate about. In the following time, the two no longer mentioned the topic of share trading. Instead, they were curious about the life in Hollywood and asked Lyman about the news of the entertainment industry. After satisfying the two technical men's speculations about the colorful world, Lyman took Ryan to say goodbye and left. After getting in the car, Lyman revealed the layout of the event direction. Ryan, I want to trouble you to do something. Wait, you go to CAA and ask Johnson to contact the headhunting company to help me find a few people with experience in event operation, and then let them go to Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Europe and other places to find game agents. Can this game really succeed? Don't worry, we will be responsible for the operation and promotion. It will definitely not be bad. Before Penguin took over in the previous life, Riot's promotion model was so bad, but it had a certain influence in the American market. With the promotion channels of Blue Butterfly and a temporary cooperative relationship with Sony, are you still afraid that the level of investment will be lower than in the previous life? And many people have misunderstanding. That is, League of Legends does rely on the strong user stickiness of Penguin, but it does not mean that the game itself is not universal. You see, Penguin is not successful in every game it represents, and it is not uncommon for it to lose money and shut down its service. Therefore, don't attribute the factors of success to one point. Okay, I'll find someone to do it. After finishing this trivial matter, Lyman has a better idea of the game layout plan. In his opinion, the reason why League of Legends can grow into a very broad audience base in the future is that it imitates the competition system that the NBA has gradually established. After all, the life of the game has not been long. The most typical example is the various masterpieces developed by Blizzard. Almost all of them are popular for a while, and players quickly lose them. League of Legends will naturally go through this stage, but because of the existence of the competition system, it often allows old players to return, or they will spend some time to pay attention to it when they are working and don't play. It has to be said that this is also a case in the history of games that can learn from successful experience. On the other hand, Riot received a large amount of funds and adopted Lyman's suggestions to start recruiting people and continue to optimize. For this kind of thing, these people are more positive than Lyman. After all, it is easy to understand the satisfaction and pleasure of making a product recognized by players in their own hands. Just like that, 2 days later, after Red Dragonfly Games and the Economic and Sports Department gradually filled up their staff, they immediately started working. At this time, there are only a few agents in each region that are powerful, and everyone knows which manufacturers to contact for cooperation. In fact, it is not difficult to find a door, but it is difficult to impress others, to pay the agency fee, and invest corresponding resources, even if the conditions given by Riot are not high, only requiring 20% of the regional game revenue profit. NetEase later needed to share 55% of the regional revenue as the agent of World of Warcraft, which shows the strength of Blizzard. The previous company Jiacheng only gave 25%, not to mention the agency fee of $210 million. Of course, at this time, Riot and Blizzard certainly have no room for comparison, and the confidence is not enough. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 924 Korean Agent, Part 3. Samseong-dang, located in Gangnam District, Seoul, has no unique scenery and no historical deposits, but because of its geographical location, it has become the core business circle of the capital of South Korea. In the industrial park, in a business building on the south side, is located Microsoft, one of the country's most capital-rich game manufacturers, whose well-known games include Lineage, Lineage 2, Aeon, etc. According to its second quarter financial report, Microsoft's revenue in 2009 will reach 578.7 billion won, ranking second among all Korean game companies. What's more rare is that the main business and development direction of this game giant is massively multiplayer online role-playing games, and it has been established for less than 12 years. It is also very active in exploring overseas markets, and is not sticking to one place. As early as May 17, 2001, at the E3 exhibition, Microsoft acquired an American game studio as a stepping stone to enter the American market. In other words, they are also willing to represent excellent products in other regions. Therefore, when Virginio Reynolds, the president of the newly established Red Dragonfly Games, who was the former senior executive of Capcom's US branch, and had many years of experience in organizing events, found the head of Microsoft's US site and expressed his intention to visit the parent company and cooperate, he took Riot's creative president Tryndamere to Seoul. For the senior management of Microsoft, negotiating cooperation is a common thing. Even if Riot is not well known, they don't reject anything and send people to pick up at the airport without any neglect. After all, the game industry often has explosive dark horses, which is as unexpected as the film industry. Who knows if Riot has any good goods in hand? Moreover, an American game manufacturer came to South Korea, which seems to be somewhat confident and powerful. In the current market environment, is globalization the kingly way? Out of respect for the United States, Microsoft executive Park Seung-jae personally accompanied them, and even showed off his company's muscles first, taking Tryndamere and Virginio to visit their products and various office areas. Soon, the two guests were led to the Blade and Soul studio in the early stages of development. Park Seung-jae even stopped and proudly introduced, "This is a 3D multiplayer online role-playing game, developed using the Unreal 3 engine, with an estimated investment cost of no less than 50 billion won, about 230 million yuan, and it is a key product for our company to invest in the future." Of course, the effect of showing off muscles in this way is definitely good, and Tryndamere looked very interested. In fact, in Asia, the gaming soil in South Korea is quite good, and it can have a considerable influence, which fully meets the needs of Riot or League of Legends to expand the market. The common agency model in the gaming industry is similar to the channel cooperation model in the film industry. They all rely on internal cooperation in various regions to help develop the market and make profits together. Therefore, before coming, Virginio also reached a consensus with Tryndamere, the executive representing Riot's position, to inspect several more companies and let them bid for competition. Therefore, even though they already recognized Microsoft's capital strength in their hearts, the two responded enthusiastically and introduced the capital behind them, and also did not hesitate to praise their own product League of Legends in various words. In the office, Park Seung-jae looked at the game data and demonstration effects that Tryndamere copied through the USB flash drive, as well as the analysis of the current market audience and the audience space that can be reached in the future. He couldn't help but ask, "Excuse me, does your company still need investment?" Virginio listened to his somewhat stuck English and smiled slightly to make his position clear. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm the president of Red Dragonfly Games. Our company was just established in Los Angeles this month. The first business scope is to acquire 67.6% of Riot's shares. As for which company holds the remaining shares, you should be familiar with it. It is the internet giant Penguin from the mainland." Park Seung-jae heard it and knew it in his heart. He even knew that Penguin also took a fancy to this game. After betting on the future, the possibility of the success of League of Legends could not help but rise to a higher level. He himself attaches some importance to game manufacturers in various regions around the world, and he knows that Penguin's decision-making level has always been good. It has joined the car, which also means that the product itself has an extra layer of protection. Of course, Park Seung-jae's expression management is still in place. Even at this moment, he had the idea of winning the agency rights in South Korea, and he kept a professional smile, as if he was not very tempted, so that he could negotiate conditions. Our company has rich experience in operating games, and has a sufficient user base and strong enough delivery capabilities, whether offline or online, so it is definitely right to choose us. I just don't know what kind of agency plan you want. Let's talk. Hearing Park Seung-ji's inquiry, Trindamir looked at Virginio, and also let this guy understand who is the leader. Virginio thought of the instructions of the big boss Lyman, and smiled calmly. The Korean game market covers a population of more than 10 million, and the revenue space is among the best in the entire Asian region. Well, your company is also ranked 26th among global mobile game companies on this basis. We have no doubt about its strength and operational capabilities, but at this moment, Virginio turned into a Korean fan and Microsoft fan, and reviewed their brilliant achievements. Of course, the collection of information in advance is obviously to increase one's own price. This is like saying that your region has great potential, and you will definitely make a lot of money after you become an agent, so it's not too much for me to ask for more. If it is changed to Vietnam, no one will be willing to pay a high price. Park Seung-ji is not stupid. How can he not see the obvious flattery? The Korean game market covers so many people. The key is that there is more than one game company in this place. Can the total volume be compared with the share it has taken in? Naturally, he was not confused by these words. He couldn't help but sneer. Our company ranks 26th. Doesn't it mean that there are 25 game manufacturers ahead of us who are better than us? Yeah. Virginio has just joined the company. He must want to make achievements with a high salary, otherwise he will not be able to sit still. He nodded immediately and said, Mr. Park is really ambitious. Of course, the revenue ranking cannot simply summarize what a game company can achieve, but maybe the agency of our game is an opportunity. We all believe that it can succeed. After hearing Virginio's answer, Park Seung-ji didn't know what to say. Agency is not simple. The energy, resources, and money spent in it cannot be summarized as an opportunity. So you have already seen that League of Legends can be a big hit in Korea. Of course, Park Seung-ji would not walk away in disdain after hearing such shameless words. Raising the price? Everyone has their own means. There is nothing to say. I still want to hear your offer. Virginio said seriously. The agency fee for 2 years is 207 million won, about 12 million RMB, an average of 6 million per year, or 850,000 US dollars per year, plus 23% annual regional revenue profit sharing. Mr. Reynolds, this is impossible. Park Seung-ji retorted with the same seriousness. 80 million won, 4 years of agency rights, and 12% profit sharing. Then, the two began to bargain according to their respective bottom lines. This is basically a skill that should be possessed by everyone from selling vegetables to selling arms. Virginio said, the development cost of League of Legends is not low. There is still room for improvement in visual effects and game experience. We also need to maintain content updates and provide technical support. Park Seung-ji said, the share ratio is too high, and the user resources we import cannot be simply measured by price. If your company takes so much turnover revenue in addition to the agency fee, then we can't make any money at all. It's a waste of work. This is not a long-term cooperation model. Of course, both parties are not sure about the so-called profit level, but just try to raise their own side as much as possible according to psychological expectations. Let's put it this way, if the person in charge of Blizzard came to discuss cooperation with a masterpiece, 50% share and high agency fees would be something they dare to say given their size and record. Riot is still a game studio that needs to prove itself. No matter what, under the premise of certain risks, the stakes will not be much. In the end, the two sides naturally did not reach an agreement. Because Virginio's strategy is to meet the bottom line, he will talk to other Korean big companies and even invite several interested buyers to go on a field trip together. And he did it, not just in one place, but in other regions, maximizing the benefits under competition. Anyway, Virginio could not show his role this time, and his position was not stable at all. The high salary of 8 million per year with option bonuses was not so easy to get. Chapter 925 Somewhere subscribe, vote. When Virginio left Korea and prepared to go to Japan, Hong Kong Island, Taiwan and other places to find agents, he also reported roughly to Lyman the process of dealing with several game manufacturers. In his opinion, as long as Virginio is thick-skinned enough and has the eloquence to exaggerate the chips, he will undoubtedly be competent for this job. Praising him a few words can be regarded as supporting him. After all, the game business is just a sideline, and Riot has nothing to do. Lyman's main focus is still on movies. For example, after more than 3 weeks of screening, the momentum of New Moon has dropped sharply. It is completely impossible to see that it is a highly popular work that has exceeded 100 million in the first week. Facts have proved that in a single audience market, passion comes and goes quickly. The only consolation is that the peripherals of the movie are more popular than the first one, and the fans' desire to buy has not fallen as fast as the box office of the movie has fallen. This is also good news. As for overseas, Lionsgate has gradually reduced its investment in publicity and promotion in the past few days, and has continuously adjusted its level with the market. In short, both parties have got what they wanted in this cooperation. If the main creators get another salary increase, the production budget for the third film will have to be at least 72 million. The movie sold well and entered a stable period. The producer of this series, Blake, came back and reported to Lyman, according to the shooting plan formulated by the company, this type of Mary Sue movie has very high requirements on the age of the characters. In the next 2 years, we should continue to release sequels while the leading actors are still young. In fact, if we shoot them together, the combined expenses of the two films can be reduced compared to doing them separately. Since this is a good idea and the production department has decided, let's do it. But have you talked to their agents about it? Lyman asked. It's just a matter of salary increase, and their attitude is very friendly, and they all want to achieve it quickly. To be honest, we don't need to put any pressure on them. The actors themselves are the breakthrough. Thanks to the screening of these two movies, their popularity and value are completely incomparable to the past, so they have benefited greatly. What's more, the Twilight series has not gone downhill, so no one will give up. Blake analyzed, but the second part is also aiming for the 600 million mark worldwide. When it is taken off the screen, there is so much time left. Even if the screen share is reduced a lot, it will not be a problem to exceed 700 million. With this achievement, we will always have to meet some of their small requests. You can decide. As long as it's not too excessive, I will agree. Lyman saw the matter clearly. He couldn't always treat them as small roles. After all, they were big names now, and their salaries had to match. We still have a firm grasp of the copyright and are flying dividends. What he meant was that when the salary increased to a certain level, the North American box office share could also be used in exchange for excessive project expenditures. In short, the return rate on the books must look good. I see. After Blake left, Lyman stayed in the office for a while, dealt with some documents that needed his signature, and then went to see Sophia again. This director, who was also very motivated at work, had finished shooting all the materials for Virgin Hill a few days ago, after he had mastered the script and set up the crew in late May, and returned to Los Angeles. What are you going to do? This film is not suitable for the atmosphere of the Oscars. It's too bland. I want to take it to Venice next year. After polishing several films, and having a father who is a big director to help with reference, Sophia soon knew how to build momentum for the work in her hands, and enter the market more calmly. In fact, two artistic films are like this. If there were not so many film festivals to be exhibited, with the bonus of platform awards, the speed of decline of art films would only be faster. The simple theater operation has been getting further and further away from independent and profound works, or in other words, the market is becoming more and more impetuous. If Lost in Translation was released in 2009, the results might not be as high. Have you greeted the organizing committee over there? Do you need my help? Lyman asked. No need to bother. My film Her was shown in Venice 2 years ago. I know some filmmakers there. Well, the film festival road planned by the Coppola family for Sophia seems to be well managed. Lyman smiled and said, after you finish this film, I will continue to help you collect suitable scripts. I will sort them out in a while. You can take a look. Deep films must continue to be made, even if the profit is not high or even a small loss, but Lyman has never changed his persistence. Okay, but I have also written something during this period, a story of examination, reflection, and growth. Sophia is still quite opinionated about movies, and often reads novels and newspapers to absorb creative materials. The inspiration for her new film, which she is now very interested in, comes from her own life experience to some extent. After all, as the daughter of Francis Coppola, she has been accustomed to all kinds of glitz in Hollywood since she was a child. Although Sophia herself said that she wanted to shoot a fictional celebrity life in contemporary Los Angeles, and the main scene was the Chateau Marmont Hotel. A hotel itself is a small world with all kinds of interesting people, so I chose the hotel as the background, because many stars also work in hotels. In this short-term residence, people are often at a moment of transition and change, and these sensitive emotions are a good topic to extend. But Lyman still saw her own shadow, and it was no wonder that she was so concerned. It sounds like a very interesting movie. I will support you. Thank you. Has the name of the movie been decided? Somewhere. In this way, Virgin Hill was completed and entered the editing stage. While Sophia was busy with this, she would also prepare for the new film during her rest. Somewhere is not expensive, and the scenes and characters are quite simple. It can be said that this is also Sophia's style. Her works have always focused on one or two people to portray the psychology of their characters, and the emotions are neither high nor low, always with a quiet taste. Not so noisy, not so lonely. And the investment required for this movie is also very low, with a budget of about 8 million, because according to the shooting plan presented by Sophia, she hopes to find her relatives and friends to complete it together, and there is no big expense at all. Afterwards, there was nothing that needed Lyman to do personally, and time always passed quickly, as if in the blink of an eye. October arrived. New Moon is still very depressed, but it is precisely because the total box office has increased that there is no market. At this time, its global cumulative box office has exceeded 600 million, of which North America has earned 267 million. Then, I'm Legend is also coming. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.